Back on SportsCenter with the breaking news is the dismissal of Bobby Petrino as head coach at the University of Arkansas after 4 seasons, 21 wins the last 2. Finished in the top 5 in the poll last year, all because of a motorcycle accident that involved a female employee that he had hired, employee of the athletic department, and failed to tell his boss, Jeff Long, about it immediately, and that has gotten him in water to the point that he now lost his job. A look at Bobby Petrino's professional resume. He was 41-9 in 4 seasons at Louisville, taking the Cardinals to a bowl game each year. In 2006, Louisville finished 6th in the AP poll after defeating Wake Forest in the Orange Bowl. Now, then he jumped in 2007, shortly after signing a 10-year contract extension to take over the Atlanta Falcons. Soon lost Michael Vick. Petrino's club won just 3 of its first 13 games before he abruptly quit to take the head coaching job in Fayetteville. The Razorbacks increased their win total in each of Petrino's first 4 seasons. In 2011, finished 11-2, losing only to Alabama and LSU, both on the road. Those 2 teams, of course, played in the BCS title game. Now let's bring in ESPN basketball analyst Jimmy Dykes. But Jimmy went to school at the University of Arkansas, lives in the Fayetteville area. Jimmy, before we get big and talk about the entire Razorback and the nation and the state, let's go small in the boss, AD Jeff Long here. How much of what happened here just went against the man himself and how he operates?
I'm going to say that's probably the bottom line in this with him, John. I mean, he has pushed all the right buttons since he's been the athletic director at Arkansas. I think he has a great pulse for the Razorback Nation. I think he has a great pulse for the morality of the program and what it should stand for, the integrity of the program. And like I said, he has done everything to this point that I would view a strong leader to do in terms of who he hired in Petrino to start with, Mike Anderson, the facilities upgrade that he's done, the ability to increase ticket prices and get people to come along. A lot of hard things he's been able to do, and he's sold them right because he's always been out in front. He's been a terrific leader. And I know both Bobby Petrino and Jeff Long well. I've been in communication with both of them over the last 4 or 5 days. I know Jeff Long has been in a very, very hard spot. He was placed in a very difficult spot, about as tough a spot as any athletic director that I can remember over the last 10 years being put in. It's right up there with any other scandal or problem that I think an administrator's had to deal with. And, we're expecting the press conference here at 7:15 local time where I know he will go into detail and shed more light on it. But I think at the end of the day, Jeff Long has made the decision that he knows in his mind he feels like was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do, and now the fans of this program will have to follow along in his leadership.
You mentioned you'd spoken with Coach Petrino. I don't know what you were at liberty to divulge, but did he get the sense when you talked to him that his job was on the line here?
No, I haven't had that kind of communication with him. I know he has appreciated my concern for him and my thoughts and my prayers for him and his family right now. He knows that he messed up. I know that he knows that. And you talk about a guy that has been totally focused since I've known him on 2 things in his life: coaching that football team and being with his family. Those are the only 2 passions in his life. So I know that he is hurt right now. I know he is, you talk about guys, I think, hitting rough spots and low spots in their life. I'm pretty sure right now Bobby Petrino is at that spot. So as a friend of his, my concern for him is, where does he go now as a man in life? How does he bounce back for this? What's his response going to be? I firmly believe this. I know Coach does too, that life is 10% what happens to us and 90% how we respond. And now my concern for him as a friend is how does he respond to this news?
Mm-hmm. Folks in the SEC know, I'm not sure people country-wise realize how rabid the Razorback fan base is there. In the end, how does this play? Because the winning is great. Integrity is hard not to, it's hard not to stand up and go, look what we did, the right thing.
John, there's going to be an outpouring, I anticipate, of fans. I think this thing was split right down the middle. I think it was split right down the middle from, I've been back from the Final Four, for a week now, a week ago tomorrow, or today. I guess today's Tuesday. And it's been split right down the middle. I think that fan base that felt like that you cannot let Bobby Petrino go He is the coach that can lead us to a national championship. He's the only option for us out there. We need to stick with him. I think they're going to be loud. I think they're going to be vocal, and that's okay. I think Jeff Long has weighed all that out and understands either way he went on this, you're going to have a passionate fan base now voicing their opinion. But I also think at the end of the day, Jeff Long has made the decision that no one wants to win any more than Arkansas. They're in the SEC, the number one football conference in all of college football, and there's a lot at stake. I think Arkansas feels like they have a legitimate shot at a national championship this year with both Alabama and LSU coming to Fayetteville. All the things line up from Tyler Wilson coming back to Niall Davis to what looks like is Arkansas's best team since they maybe won it back in the 60s. Mm-hmm. But I also think Jeff Long thinks, where do we want this program to be 4 or 5 years from now? And more importantly, this is his stamp now on his tenure. I think this will be his stamp in saying, I'm going to do it what I think is the right way to do it. And it's more important than wins and losses. And that in this part of the country, John, as you know, is a huge, huge statement to make.
Yeah, and you mentioned all those Razorback fans. They remember the almost not quite of Houston Nutt or Joe Kynes or Danny Ford or Ken Hatfield. Jimmy Dykes, ESPN analyst for basketball, but the man who has the pulse of the community there in Fayetteville. Thanks very much, Jimmy. There you see. That's where it'll take place. The media beginning to gather there in Fayetteville. Not exactly sure where they are, if they're at the athletic building or the football stadium over at Bud Walton Arena. But certainly when Jeff Long gets there, we will bring it to you here on SportsCenter. A look at Bobby Petrino's professional resume. He went 41-9 in 4 seasons at Louisville, taking the Cardinals to a bowl game each year. In 2006, Louisville finished 6th in the final AP poll after defeating Wake Forest in the Orange Bowl. Petrino jumped to the NFL in 2007, taking over an Atlanta Falcons squad that soon lost Michael Vick. Petrino's club won just 3 of its first 13 games before he abruptly quit, left a note in everybody's locker, all his players, and took the head coaching job at Arkansas the very next day. The Razorbacks have increased their win total in each of Petrino's first 4 seasons. In 2011, they finished 11-2, losing only to Alabama and LSU, both on the road. Those 2 teams, of course, played in the BCS title game and are both scheduled to be in Fayetteville this coming season. We're now joined on the phone by Chris Fowler, College Game Day host. Chris, just your initial reaction. There was a lot of speculation on what might happen, which way Arkansas would go. As it turns out, Petrino no longer the coach at Arkansas.
Well, I'm initially surprised. A week ago today, the bombshell was dropped that Petrino was not alone in the motorcycle when it crashed, and then details began to come forward over the subsequent days, and it began to be obvious that his problems were getting deeper and deeper. But I do believe that Jeff Long and the decision makers there were struggling with the way to justify keeping Petrino on, and apparently that just became impossible to justify in recent days as the story began to flesh out. But because he has been so successful and because replacing him with a top flight coach will be difficult for a number of reasons, including the timing, I believe they really wanted to keep him. They wanted to figure out a way to make this play, but in the end, apparently just couldn't do that.
Yeah, if you could expand on that, the reason now the timing of this is so tough, just strictly from a football standpoint, you got a great team. Now leadership, obviously that void has to be filled.
Exactly, and here it is after spring practice, 4 months from the start of the season, far from ideal time to be looking for a replacement coach. It really leaves Arkansas in limbo. I'm going to be curious to see the announcement of Petrino's fate, what Jeff Long has to say about the future of Arkansas, because it's very easy to produce a pink slip and make a decision that'll be widely applauded in college athletics, but to have a plan behind the pink slip, as you guys know, is much more difficult, and he has to find a coach, whether it's Petrino's brother Paul or someone from the current staff to step in on an emergency basis while they try to get through the season in that way, or they try to bring in somebody who's got a history at Arkansas but is coaching somewhere else. I mean, these are all things that I'm sure they've been wrestling with. Beyond just what to do about Petrino, you have to look at the future of a program that has very high expectations, that fully expects to contend in the SEC West, go to BCS bowl games. I mean, this is a program that, because of Petrino's success the last couple of years, has very, very high expectations, including the coming season.
Chris, every Saturday morning you're at places that are rabid about college football. Arkansas is as good as any of those. Do you have a sense of how this will play with the folks that fill those stadiums on Saturday afternoon in Fayetteville and over in Little Rock?
The public was divided. I mean, a lot of people wanted to keep Petrino. It was kind of an anemic turnout, in my opinion, that rally last night in Fayetteville. But I think if you listen to the media down there and the message boards, the fans, many of whom just will blindly support Petrino, but also sort of believe that they're not going to find a coach easily to come into Arkansas who can go toe-to-toe with Nick Saban in Alabama, Les Miles at LSU, Auburn. And it's the toughest division in the toughest conference in football. And yet they have high expectations. And I think they felt like Petrino could compete on even terms with the heavyweight coaches in that division. And that's why it's a blow. That's why so many people were willing to look the other way and forgive this. But apparently, that's not the direction that the decision makers ultimately went with. I think there'll be a lot of very angry people. There'll be people who will also stand up and applaud, who will believe that Petrino's actions were a stain on the school and that it had to be done. But I think it's very much a fan base divided.
Chris Fowler, host of ESPN College Game Day, thank you very much for your time this evening. Thanks,
My
Chris.
pleasure, guys. Okay.
College football analyst Mark May joining us. Now, Mark, first, I want to get your reaction to Bobby Petrino being out at Arkansas.
Well, knowing Jeff Long and knowing him very well, he was the athletic director of the University of Pittsburgh for a while, and knowing Jeff and his integrity, I'm not really surprised by this. This is a situation, Jay, that he lied to Jeff Long, the athletic director, and I think the trust was broken there. And I really commend Jeff Long in this situation because the bottom line, he did the right thing. A lot of people are going to question this. A lot of people are going to say, well, we had a great coach. There's more important things in life than wins and losses. And I think that Jeff Long is setting an example for the fans of Arkansas and the fans of America that sometimes you've got to take one step back to take two steps forward.
You know Jeff Long. Were you expecting this decision based on what you just said about him?
I wasn't expecting it. I thought it might be another week or so before he made a decision like this. But when that trust is broken, when you look someone in the eye and they blatantly lie to you about a situation, how can you trust them down the road? How can you trust them to walk into a recruit's home and have the reaction that he had 8 months ago when he walked into a recruit's home? Because you're not going to have that situation. A lot of recruits are going to sit back and say, can I trust this coach? Even though even his past, when he left certain places, when he left Louisville, when he left the Atlanta Falcons, now when this situation comes up, there's a matter of trust, and I think that bomb was broken with athletic director Jeff Long, and I think that it's never going to be replaced, and obviously we know that now.
Mark, how good can or will Arkansas be on the field this season?
I had them as third in the SEC West, which basically you're still in the top 10 in the country, because I had them right behind Alabama, right behind LSU in the SEC West. So that puts them in one of the top teams in the country. They had a lot of talent coming back this year. And if you look at the body of work that's been done by Bobby Petrino in the last few years, going to the Cotton Bowl, going to their first BCS game, which was the Sugar Bowl. They lost to Ohio State. But what he was able to do is build a great foundation there with a lot of great athletes and a lot of great alumni and a lot of great support for this football program. That's why you're seeing a lot of fans that are upset right now. But I think down the road, when they look back at this situation a year or two down the road, they're going to look back and say, hey, they did the right thing.
Project on Bobby Petrino, his career after this. What do you think?
It's going to be difficult for him to get a major job at a major program. And if you look at the situation, if you're an athletic director in any major program right now, you can look at the body of work on the field. It's been excellent. It's been one of the top in the nation. But the question is, off the field. You look at what he's been able to do off the field where he's left places, as I mentioned, like Louisville and the Atlanta Falcons, and now this situation where he lied to an athletic director, lied to the administrators, and the situation that he put himself in. So for a person of character, how can you sit back and say, I can bring this person in and have him lead my football program, which means you're basically leading the university, because if you're successful in football, you're the face of the program and the face of the university. How can you put yourself in that situation as an administrator or an athletic director and hire a Bobby Petrino? I think his next step, possibly, if he gets a job, will be in the NFL, not in the collegiate ranks.
Where do you think Arkansas will go now, replacing Petrino?
I think they have to go in-house. They're going to have to go in staff because it's late in the game right now. They're in spring practice right now. You can't wait any longer in this situation. You got to put somebody in staff that the players know, that the players trust, and the players believe in, that they'll try to run the same system that they know right now. That comfort factor has to be there. You can't bring anybody from the outside into this situation. I think for Jeff Long, it's a tough situation, but here's the situation. If they can get through this year, and whoever's the interim coach does a terrific job or gets them to 9 or 10 wins, you may keep him as your head coach going forward. But if there's another hot coach out there that they're looking for, obviously they're going to be looking for him during this transition.
Bobby Petrino out as Arkansas head coach. News conference momentarily, 8:15 Eastern, right here on SportsCenter and ESPN News. College football analyst Mark May, we appreciate your time. Thank you.
That's where it'll go down in about 8 minutes from now. The Arkansas media room beginning to fill. Jeff Long soon to give an explanation. Although I think we all have an inkling as to what exactly happened and how it went down, but Jeff Long will explain his thinking.
Welcome back to SportsCenter. Jay Harris, John Anderson, and Joe Shad. Our breaking news, Bobby Petrino out as Arkansas football coach. Joe, catch us up to speed. Exactly what happened led to this decision.
Yeah, what Arkansas is going to announce here in short time is that Bobby Petrino's contract has been terminated with cause. Many millions of dollars on the line for Bobby Petrino, the university feeling that he essentially violated a morals clause, a clause that is, in fact, in most coaches' contracts. University finding that Petrino knowingly deceived university officials, that he acted inappropriately during the hiring process of Jessica Durrell, the 25-year-old who moved into his football office on a job about a week ago. Also finding, of course, that he brought negative light to the university. You see the actual language in Paterno's contract right here. Not unusual. Of course, what we don't know as of now is whether or not Petrino will try to recoup some of those monies. Certainly potential for litigation here, but Arkansas severing ties with the coach tonight.
So as we boil that down, it's not so much the motorcycle accident and even the circumstances. It was not being forthright with Jeff Long about how it all went down.
Yeah, sources telling me that the biggest problems, lying, misleading, failing to disclose to his bosses the fact that there was another rider on that motorcycle. In fact, the university put out a statement saying that he was the only individual involved in that. And then, of course, I think the biggest problem of all was hiring Jessica Durrell, the 25-year-old woman with whom he apologized for having an inappropriate relationship, into his football office. We don't know for sure whether that violated state law, whether that violated university policy. Made the University of Arkansas Athletic Administration Department very upset, very angry, very disappointed, enough to the point where they said, you know what? We can't get over this. We can't move forward with you. There's been a violation, a breach of trust and dishonesty we just can't move past.
As we tick our way to 8:15 in the news conference in Fayetteville, do we know how much they wrestled with that? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, throughout the process over the last week, I was definitely told that Arkansas officials were weighing all of the factors. How would the boosters react? You know, they've raised a lot of money at the University of Arkansas, and they have big plans for further development in that SEC arms race. They thought about, well, you know, is this just a morality issue? Can we get past these things? Certainly there were a number of fans who said, look, Bobby Petrino had 21 wins the last 2 years. He brought us to a BCS game. He won 11 games last year. He brought 2 Heisman Trophy candidates onto our team, and we're a potential top 10 squad this year. You can't get rid of this guy. But Jeff Long, the athletic director, it was his decision. He made the recommendation to the chancellor at Arkansas, and Bobby Petrino was out.
Arkansas building a multi-million-dollar football facility. How do you quantify Petrino's stamp, imprint on that?
Yeah, you know, this is a damaging, devastating blow, not only for the football program, not just for the athletics department, but for the school as a whole. We all know that when those football programs are successful, when they're winning games, donations go up across the board. So tremendous pressure now on Jeff Long. What does he do? You know, some of the players have already come to him and said, listen, promote Taver Johnson, promote Paul Haynes, 2 defensive coaches on the staff. We want to roll with the guys we have. But Jeff Long might have to try to bring in a big name. That's what the fans want. That's what those boosters are asking for. A Jimmy Johnson, a Butch Davis. They're thinking big because keep in mind, just in their own division, they have to compete with Nick heavyweights.
Everybody who's associated with the program, if you're a fan, you're a booster, you're a student, you think, our job is great. In actuality, how is this job viewed maybe not even within the SEC, but nationally?
Well, it's a tough job. It's not an easy job. You know, the SEC West is obviously the strongest division in all of college football. You know, you can finish third in the division and still be a top 10 program nationally. Certainly there is a great deal of fan support. There is booster support. There is money in the state of Arkansas that is being funneled towards the athletics department. So the bottom line is there will be many coaches who are interested in the job. Terrible timing. Are they willing, for example, a Gus Malzahn, a Garrick McGee, two obvious potential candidates, willing to when they just finished their first spring practice? Terrible timing for Jeff Long. That's why certainly the interim scenario is possible.
We are awaiting the news conference in the basketball facility on the University of Arkansas. Bobby Petrino out as football coach. College football analyst Joe Shad, Jay Harris, John Anderson here on SportsCenter. How much of a surprise was this particular decision to you? Because you follow the sport very closely.
Yeah, and I really wasn't sure whether or not Petrino was going to be fired. You know, I was going both ways, and certainly there were people close to the program who felt throughout the process that it could go in either direction. Here's something I've learned covering college football over the last year. If Joe Paterno can get fired at Penn State and Jim Tressel can get fired at Ohio State, anybody can get fired. Nothing should surprise us. So as wildly popular as Bobby Petrino is in the state of Arkansas, as much success as he has had over the last 2 years, as much as the fans love the dynamic offense he brought, the fact that he has tutored quarterbacks who have competed for Heisman trophies, I am not really surprised in the end. Once you heard that he was not the only individual on that motorcycle, and then you heard subsequently that a woman on that motorcycle he brought in and was having an inappropriate relationship, I don't think he had a chance, really.
Not that any of these are related, the Penn State situation, the Ohio State situation, Arkansas, and yet they're each, sort of troubling in their own way. Do you see an influence on those other two in what happened in Fayetteville?
Yeah, look, I mean, there have been problems in college sports and problems in college football for a long time. I mean, these things have taken place. Look, there are some coaches around the country who said, Bobby Petrino is not the only guy who's stepped out on his wife. But, I think another thing we've learned, John and Jay, don't lie. Jim Tressel, the biggest problem that he had is the cover-up and the lie, and that's almost always.
Wow. Not just in football, but anyway. No. Martha Stewart went to jail because she lied.
Well, that's true.
The Belko cases, Jason Giambi went before the grand jury, told that went to the grand jury and perhaps did not be forthright and told the truth. They ended up getting, knocks on the door and prosecuted for those things. So yes, it is almost always the lie.
Now, Bobby Petrino obviously not expected to be a part of this news conference. I'm told that Petrino will release a statement sometime after the conclusion of Jeff. It'll be interesting to see in this news conference how much detail he gets into, because remember, he was conducting a thorough review. He interviewed Jessica Durrell. He interviewed other people in the athletic department. Did he find out anything else? I don't necessarily think that to fire with cause he had to find anything else. But it'll be interesting to see to what extent he goes into the detail. When was Jessica Durrell hired? What did she say about what she was promised? Certainly there are some people who were thinking that it was an unusual hire based on Durrell's experience. And again, the university concluding that not only did Bobby Petrino have an inappropriate relationship with a university employee, a 25-year-old female, but when did she become a university employee? These are all questions that need to be asked.
For the Razorbacks as a collegiate, was working in the Razorback Foundation before she was fired by Bobby Petrino. Is there a potential here that we're looking football, and looking Petrino outside with Jessica Durrell for lawsuits against the university from her point of view, whether it's sexual harassment or these inappropriate things? Yeah,
no question. I mean, you think back to Mike DuBose, the former University of Alabama football coach who was able to keep his job briefly after he apologized for having an inappropriate relationship with his secretary. It's my recollection that secretary walked away with a certain sum of money. So it'll be interesting to hear what Jeff Long says about Jessica Durrell's future and whether or not she in any way, acted inappropriately, or what their findings were in relation to any potential sexual harassment claims. These are all things that are going to have to be answered.
Still waiting to hear from AD Jeff Long. They're waiting. They're going to have the news conference there at Bud Walton Arena. Shelley Smith for ESPN is there. They meant to do it at 8:15, so they're running a little late at this point. Davis, Reese, you followed the college game with Coach Holtz and Mark May every Saturday. Your initial reaction to finding out that a coach this successful with this much power is on the street?
Well, John, I think it was an inevitable end. I mean, I think if there had been a way to continue on, that Arkansas would have found that way. I mean, one of the top offensive coaches. But this became an untenable situation. I mean, the various potential for other issues. I mean, just to throw out a few potential people that were apparently passed over for the job that Jessica Durrell got. I just heard Joe Shad mention the potential for sexual harassment issues. Now, who knows if that would come to fruition or not. The fact that there could be other people on campus wind up in a similar circumstance. How then do you deal with them if you allow him to continue? And then I think there's the point that whether people want to accept it or like it or not, that the football coach is the most visible person associated with the university at most of these major big state schools, especially football playing schools. A lot of people, and there are probably even some alums who couldn't name the university president, but they know who Bob Petrino is. And it becomes when someone stains the reputation of the university and puts the university in a vulnerable situation, as his actions apparently did, I think it just becomes a situation where they can't continue. But, John, again, it's another lesson. It's the same, different circumstances, but it's the same as Jim Tressel. It's the same as Bruce Pearl. Just been a moral indiscretion or a moral failure, an error in judgment on a personal level. That can be survived. We've seen other public figures survive this many times over. The problem becomes when you do the other things that puts the university in jeopardy.
Yeah, we've seen that recently with the New Orleans Saints being warned numerous times and
didn't tell the truth to Commissioner Roger Goodell.
Yeah, Reese, moving forward. As Arkansas tries to get past this, in your knowledge of the program, the conference, big name, where do you think they might lean?
That's a great question. That people make a mistake is that sometimes they panic and feel like they have to make the permanent hire. I think the thing to do at this juncture, unless they have somebody that they're absolutely committed to, the thing to do would be to go interim, because I know that this is speaking strictly on the field, they've got the nucleus of teams lost only to Alabama and LSU last year coming back. They have both of those teams coming to their place. Great opportunity for them to perhaps win the SEC West, and I know that they don't want to let that get away. But more important than any singular year is the overall health of the program. They've got a $40 million football complex that's set to open next year. The program is strong. You've got to have the right leader. It's not a populous state. It doesn't produce a whole lot of Division I talent. So you have to have the right leader to be able to recruit wisely out of state. So whether that's in-house or outside, and I know Jeff Long, their athletic director, and I think he's a very good administrator, will make a wise move. I don't think he will make a hasty move, though. I think he'll take his time, and I think that it would even be wise to go into this season, maybe complete the season with an interim coach and then conduct a full-scale search at the end. I know that's a difficult thing for Arkansas folks to swallow because they're putting so much into this season. But I think for the long-term health of the program, you can't just hire somebody and hand them the reins to this thing on a permanent basis unless you are absolutely sure that that's who you want to be your head coach. It's a critical juncture for them. The program's been wounded. It needs to be healed. It needs someone with strong leadership skills and experience to do so. And I think at this late date, everybody just about has concluded spring practice, that a lot of people who would be interested in the Arkansas job after this upcoming season would not be in a position to take it now. So, I think that you're probably looking at, I don't know what Jeff's going to do, but I think you're probably looking at an interim situation for a year at Arkansas. At least I think that will be a prudent course of action, unless they think Taver Johnson or whoever it might be, unless they are absolutely convinced that that person should be the head coach of the Razorbacks long term.
Reese, Arkansas finished 11-2. They lost only to Alabama and LSU, both on the road. How close is this Arkansas team to Alabama and LSU?
Well, I don't think they're as talented as either one of them across the board. Certainly defensive talent. There's, last year particularly, there was not any comparison. Certainly Arkansas has some good players. They just didn't have the depth of defensive linemen and as many outstanding defensive players as they have. But Bobby Petrino doesn't need or didn't need to have a particularly large advantage in skill to match up with you offensively. He's one of the finest of football at any level. And, so I think that from an offensive standpoint, their quarterback, was better than either Alabama or LSU's last year. I think that, wide receivers, they were just as good. I think that, they didn't quite have the running backs that those two did, but I think they were close. But to say that they're completely on the same level as Alabama or LSU from a talent standpoint, or probably even from, just from a backing, recruiting area, whole thing standpoint would not be accurate. But there's certainly not a big gap between Arkansas and where the program stands at the moment and those two.
We are still awaiting the press conference from Arkansas. About 15 minutes late, college football host Reese Davis joining us. We appreciate you, Reese. Thank you very much.
He touched Joe
My pleasure, guys.
Excuse me, Reese. He touched there on State did last year. They put Luke Fickell in place. He coached the season. Not the best for the Buckeyes, but then they were able to sort of right the ship and bring in Urban Meyer. Your phone's beeping already. What can you tell us about sort of potential candidates in, out, who's sniffing around?
Well, it's interesting. Jimmy Johnson was brought up as sort of a long shot favorite among the boosters. Hey, maybe he could come in and pull a sort of Bill Parcells, New Orleans Saints scenario where he just helps us heal for a year. I'm told within the last few minutes that is extremely unlikely, so I would not put Jimmy Johnson on any lists. One possible name to add to this list here. Now, keep in mind, Garrick McGee has been at Arkansas. Butch Davis might not be the easiest hire for Jeff Long because of the NCAA difficulties, even though he wasn't named in the report. Reese Davis, a few minutes ago, mentioning that Gus Malzahn, it might be tough for him, for example, to leave a school he just joined. Skip Holtz, of course, his dad has connections to the state of Arkansas. Skip Holtz went to high school in the state of Arkansas. A name that I would add to this list would be former Pitt and Miami Dolphins coach Dave Wannstedt, who has a relationship with Jeff Long, currently with the Buffalo Bills. You try to think of guys who might be a fit, who have solid reputations. Certainly Wannstedt, a guy who would potentially be able to help heal a difficult, controversial situation.
Long time, many. Jimmy Johnson, of course, playing in the national championship with Jerry Jones, who played for Frank Boyle. So the Arkansas roots run deep among those guys, even if Jimmy Johnson. We will go down to the podium a bit late, but we'll finally start getting some explanations on the dismissal of Bobby Petrino. See them as they advance up. Quite a crowded group there on the floor of Bud Walton Arena.
Good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. Last Thursday night, I met with you to share information that I'd learned just hours earlier that Coach Petrino had not been forthcoming with me and with you about the circumstances of his motorcycle accident. As you know, I placed Coach Petrino on administrative leave while I reviewed his conduct related to the accident. I assured him and all of you that I would approach this task fairly and thoroughly. Since that time, I have spoken with key individuals who were involved in the accident and in what occurred afterwards, his passenger on the motorcycle, the individuals who transported him to Fayetteville and to the hospital, and several people who spoke with Coach Petrino before and after the accident. I reviewed the manner, the timing, the extent to which Coach Petrino shared information about the accident, both with me and with others, and to whom he was accountable. That includes, among others, the members of the football program, our supporters, student athletes, faculty, staff, and alumni of this university, and the public at large. My review raised several concerns which led me to look beyond the accident itself. Those individuals, that included the professional and the personal relationship he had with his passenger, Jessica Jarrell. The process and circumstances that influenced his decision to hire her as a direct report member of his staff, and his candor and behavior as a member of my staff. Key findings of my review. Coach Petrino knowingly misled the athletics department and the university about the circumstances related to his accident. He had multiple opportunities over a 4-day period to be forthcoming with me. He chose not to. He treated the news media and the general public in a similar manner. Coach Petrino's relationship with Ms. Durrell gave her an unfair and undisclosed advantage for a position on Coach Petrino's football staff. She was one of 159 applicants for the job, and Coach Petrino himself participated in the review and selection process without disclosing his relationship with her, and that constitutes a conflict of interest under university policy. During my review of this matter, Coach Petrino informed me that he had given a large sum of cash, some $20,000, to Ms. Durrell. Coach Petrino, however, failed to disclose this information to me prior to his recommendation to hire her into the football program. Coach Petrino's conduct regarding his account of the accident jeopardized the integrity of the football program. He made a choice to return to practice on Tuesday, to hold a press conference, and to demonstrate his physical resiliency and command of his program, all the time failing to correct the initial report that he was the only person involved in the accident. He made a conscious decision to speak and mislead the public on Tuesday. In doing so, he negatively and adversely affected the reputation of the University of Arkansas and our football program. By itself, Coach Petrino's consensual relationship with Ms. Durrell prior to her joining the football staff was not against university policy. By itself, it's a matter between individuals and their families. However, in this case, Coach Petrino abused his authority when over the past few weeks, he made a staff decision and personal choices that benefited himself and jeopardized the integrity of the football program. In short, Coach Petrino engaged in a pattern of misleading and manipulative behavior designed to deceive me and members of the athletic staff, both before and after the motorcycle accident. He used athletic department funds to hire for his staff a person with whom he had had an inappropriate relationship. He engaged in reckless and unacceptable behavior that put his relationship in the national spotlight. Coach Petrino's conduct was contrary to the character and responsibilities we demand of our head football coach. In fact, that is the very language that is included in his contract that he signed at the University of Arkansas. Consequently, this afternoon, I have informed Coach Petrino that his employment with the university was being terminated immediately. I've spoken with Assistant Head Coach Taver Johnson and have asked him to continue the responsibility for the football program's administrative operation through the completion of spring practice April 21st. Now, I realize this decision may not sit well with some Razorbacks fans here in the state of Arkansas and across the country. We have one of the top football programs in the country, and a lot of that credit goes to Coach Petrino. Credit for that success also belongs to the large measure to the student athletes in the program and to the other coaches and staff members who have worked hard to support them. I met with the football team a short time ago and informed them of my decision. I shared with them, shared with them my disappointment in having to make the difficult decision. I asked them to try to remain focused on their academics and finishing spring practice. I'm committed to providing them with the leadership that's befitting of our mission to develop student athletes to their fullest potential through intercollegiate athletics. It's been the primary obligation we have to each of them and to each of the more than 460 student athletes in our program. We are an educational institution with more than 23,000 students. We have high standards, a national reputation, and one of the best public institutions in the country. Our expectations of character and integrity in our employees can be no less than what we expect from our students. No single individual is bigger than the team. The Razorback football program or the University of Arkansas. I assure you, we will seek a head coach that possesses the expertise, leadership skills, and character to maintain Razorback football as one of the nation's elite programs. We will maintain a program of student athletes and coaches that all of our Arkansas and Razorback fans across the nation will be proud. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take some Q&A. We have people with microphones. Please wait until we get a microphone to you. We'll start here with Kurt.
Hey, Kurt. Jeff Kirkwood, Associated Press. Jeff, could you tell us the status of Ms. Durrell and her job status with the university?
Ms. Durrell is obviously an employee of our athletic program, but that's a personnel matter that I can't discuss any further in this environment.
Jeff, how concerned were you with fans of the team, how their reaction is going to be to the firing of Bobby Petrino?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of your question.
How worried are you about the fan reaction from fans of the Razorbacks about
Well, I'm certainly concerned. I know that we have very passionate fans that have been so supportive of our program. Hey, the student athletes, coaches, and fans in our program, they're the backbone of what we are and who we are. You know, I know there's disappointment. I have disappointment. I expect them to be disappointed, but then in the end, I hope that they'll rally around the student athletes in this program who are quite outstanding, and I hope they'll rally behind them, and we have opportunity for a very successful year next year. Again, at this point of the, it's still a personnel matter that's in process, and I can't share any further information other than that she did receive $20,000 confirmed by both she and Coach Petrino.
Jeff, Tom Murphy, Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Did you fire Bobby with cause, meaning the school does not intend to pay the buyout clause in his contract? And secondly, were there any conditions under which he could have accepted penalties and remained as coach?
Coach Petrino was terminated with cause, and no, there was no negotiation about ways that he could remain as our head football coach.
Go with Chris Bond.
Jeff, did Bobby express any remorse about the situation when you met with him this afternoon or at any point during the process?
Yes, I think that Coach Petrino expressed that he was sorry for what had happened.
Over here, Adam.
Adam Alter, KNWA. You said Tabor will stay on through the spring, and then at that point, will you begin a search for a new head coach?
I'll actually begin a search following this press conference tonight. We will maintain as we are through spring practice, which ends the 21st. At that time, I'll assess where we are in the search process and make a decision on an interim head coach going forward.
Do you plan on having a new head coach by the start of the next season?
You know what? It's so fresh for me. This has happened so quickly. I haven't had a chance, Adam, to contemplate that. Certainly that we are going to conduct a search and determine whether we can attract a head coach who can lead this program. If not, then we would go with an interim and then do a search following the season.
Okay, we'll go with Chris Branham right here.
Chris Branham, Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Jeff, you said that he engaged in a manipulative and deceiving behavior. Could you expand on that, and could you say that you would consider that he tried to cover up what not only had happened with the accident, but his relationship with her to you and to other people in the athletic department?
Yeah, I would characterize it as I believe Coach Petrino had a number of opportunities to share with me the nature of his relationship, and I'll leave it at that.
Go over here to Bo.
Jeff, two-part question. Would you consider anybody besides Tabor Johnson on the staff as an interim coach? Secondly, would you consider Paul Petrino as an interim coach?
I think that I have not made a decision on that. I think following spring practice, I'd make a decision as to who I thought was the best leader on an interim basis. It could be Tabor, it could be Paul Haynes, or Paul Petrino.
Okay, we'll go. John, back in the back.
Jeff, John Engelman, KFSM. Quick question for you. When you dug in the past and did your review, did you find anything similar about Coach Petrino misleading in the past that helped carry you in your decision?
And again, it's difficult to judge what you mean by the past, but no, I can't say that I have any knowledge from the past. That wasn't pertinent to this review.
Come back here in the middle.
Did Petrino try to save your job?
No, he wasn't given that opportunity.
Okay. Kurt, over here.
Jeff, you said it was with cause. Was there any kind of buyout agreement in the firing?
No, the termination was for cause.
Right here in the middle.
It's Bobby Joe Edmonds from Hawk Sports Radio. And as a former graduate, student athlete here, football and baseball, just want to thank you, and that's been for the past 30 years, been a part of this Razorback family. Just wanted to thank you for being a stand-up man and a stand-up athletic director.
Thank you.
Take other questions back here. Adam.
What discussions have you had with Paul Petrino about staying on?
I met with the entire football coaching staff and some of the support staff prior to meeting with the team. I talked to them about the fact that I hope that they would carry on, obviously coach through spring practice, and that I hope to begin meeting with them individually to discuss the future. And I will do that with each member of the football coaching staff, as well as a number of the support staff.
Jeff, Aaron Peters, Razorback Nation, you met with us late night on Thursday. I'm over here to your left.
Sorry.
You met with us late night on Thursday and said, hey, I got to do a review of this and see what I find. And now all of a sudden it's Wednesday or Tuesday. I'm sorry. At what point during those days did you know in your mind that he wasn't going to return?
Today.
It took until today.
Yes.
So facts leading up to today could have changed.
Yes, I had a conversation with Coach Petrino today, which concluded my review.
Front here, Mike.
Jeff, how hard has this been on you? I know you're close to Bobby and his family. Certainly, it wasn't an easy decision for you.
But yeah, obviously I brought Coach Petrino here. I know his family. Certainly they have been great partners as we work together to build the football program, and obviously Coach Petrino had a huge part of that. And so this is very difficult. It's very difficult on a human and personal level. But I have responsibilities greater than that, and I have to put those aside and do what's in the best interest of the university.
Okay, in the back row.
Langston Cabinet, Arkansas Odyssey. Jeff, how do you feel like this will affect not only this 2012 recruiting class, but recruiting classes in the future?
Well, I don't know. It's hard to say standing here today what impact it will have. Certainly, we hope to find a head football coach that can lead this program and attract the kind of student athletes that we think can be successful in the SEC, which you all know is the toughest football conference in the country, and we're in the toughest division. So I think that'll attract a quality coach, and it'll attract quality student athletes to compete in.
We're going to go Robbie here and then over to Matt Jones. Robbie first.
Jeff, if I missed this, I apologize, but how long had the relationship gone on, the inappropriate relationship?
Those details I'm not willing to talk about at this time, but it had been a significant period of time.
Okay, Matt Jones here in the middle.
Jeff, when you obviously went through the coaching
hiring process last time. How much more of an attractive job do you think it is because of all the renovations and building that you've done within the program?
Well, I think certainly the success our young people have had on the field is a great factor in that. I think the additions that we've made to our football program, upgrading video technology and all those kind of things, upgrading the football stadium with the new artificial surface, and then our football complex that we're building now, our football center, I think all make the job more attractive than maybe it was when Coach Petrino took the job.
Okay, we'll go Chris.
Jeff, I apologize if this has been covered. When did you learn of the $20,000 payment to Mr. Rell?
I'm sorry, I learned about it through the course of the review.
Okay, and at what point did that money exchange hands? Or was that?
You know what? I don't want to go into that detail of that, but obviously both parties admitted that a gift was given of that amount of money.
But can you? I know it was your decision to make, but can you shed some light on the process of where it went from you, the chancellor, obviously the board of trustees? Can you go through that?
Well, I sent a letter to the chancellor of the university, informing him of my decision. He is involved in the review process if Coach Petrino chooses to have my decision reviewed.
Okay, let's go up here with Larry. Larry, if you'll use our microphone as well, please.
You said more than 150 people, I believe, applied for her job, the same job that Jessica Durrell got. As an attorney from her, has she or an attorney for her contacted the university about maintaining her job? One. And two, under what circumstances did Dan Kabbalah leave that job to go to Pittsburgh? Did you assist him in getting that job out there?
First of all, you're asking me two at a time, so I got to remember the first one. What was the first one again? Yes. I understand. Thank you. No, I was in contact with her through the course of the review, but I've not received any communication from Ms. Durrell or any representative of hers. And second question again. Oh, Dan Kabbalah. No, I knew Dan Kabbalah when I worked at the University of Pittsburgh. I was helpful in getting Dan a position here that he interviewed for, and then he joined Coach Petrino's staff. I know they had an opening in Pittsburgh, and he pursued it, and so there's no more to that than other than he had an opportunity to go back to his home and work for the University of Pittsburgh.
We'll come back, Shelley, on this side.
Yeah, I have two questions. Of those 159 people, how many were actually interviewed?
I believe it is 3 were actually interviewed for the position. There were 3 finalists.
Okay, 3 questions. How long was that job open?
I can't tell you, Shelley, off the top, but I know it was shorter than our normal affirmative action hiring process.
And finally, why are you so emotional tonight?
Well, people's lives are affected, Shelley. And Coach Petrino's, but his staffs and the student athletes in our program. So those are the things that, that sometimes we miss.
Okay, let's go back over to Chris.
Jeff, what was Coach Petrino's reaction today when you told him?
In terms of, I prepared Coach Petrino when we met this morning that I believe I had grounds for termination. According to his contract, he's informed in writing of my decision, so I informed him through a letter today in writing. So I have not been with Coach Petrino since he's received my final determination in writing.
Okay, we'll go over here on this side. Bob Holt. Bob?
I chose to do it in writing because that's the terms of his contract.
Okay, Bob?
Yeah, Jeff, I was just wondering if you could share with us what the players' reaction was when you met with them.
Yes, I mean, I think honestly, I think they were, as understandably, they're concerned. Coach Petrino was the leader of their football program. I think that they are, a little bit confused at this point, concerned. But, I'm sure they're running the human emotions that any young person at that age would have. And at the same time, when they know that they've got a pretty special football team that and teammates and are looking forward for the coming year. So I'm sure this is a very difficult decision on them. And I expressed to them that I thought that it would be, and I knew that it would be.
Okay, Mike, here in front.
Jeff, in the review process, did you hear from any boosters, and did you feel any pressure from those boosters at all?
I'll be honest, I did not hear directly from boosters trying to influence me one way or the other. Certainly, I had some expressions just of concern, but I think most of them just expressed the concerns and was supportive in the review they knew I had to do. So, let me rephrase that. I think if you're talking about hearing from, I think automatically a phone call or a conversation. I've had several hundred more emails that people have sent. So I'm sorry. Again, I was going to conversations, but there are hundreds of emails that I have not had a chance to even open up. So as you might expect, the ones that I have looked at are supportive of Coach Petrino, but then also supportive of the process. So, they're what you would expect to receive from fans who are as passionate as the Razorbacks are.
With Bo and then back over here to Tom.
Jeff, obviously the timing of this, of having a head coaching vacancy, is unusual. How is it viewed among athletic directors to go into a hiring process right here where you might be able to get another head coach from another school with it being so unusual?
Yeah, it's a difficult time of year to be searching for a head football coach, no question. But I do think that our program is one that there will be people interested in, and that's part of my process. We'll be seeing what coaches kind of self-identify to us that would be interested in our program. But again, we can command a high-level football coach, and we're not going to compromise that. If we have to go through the season with an interim, I'm going to consider that. But again, I need some time to play out the search and see where we stand.
Tom here in the front.
Jeff, two parts. Personally, how disappointed were you in his behavior during this? And then secondly, did you say you met with him in person to inform him that there were grounds?
Yes.
What was his reaction when you informed him there were grounds for the dismissal?
I think his reaction was a little bit, obviously, concerned that I felt I had grounds for termination. So he was concerned. Tom, I'm sorry. I'm disappointed in Coach Petrino's actions. I hired him to lead a group of student athletes, and the head football coach is not only the leader of our football student athletes, but in many ways they're the focal point of our entire athletic program. And so, yes, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in his lack of judgment. I'm disappointed in his failure to, tell me the truth about it, or failure to just inform me of the situation. So.
Kurt? Jeff, your career at Arkansas has largely been tied with Bobby's. Knowing his history in the past of misleading employers, and now that it's happened to you, do you feel a sense of regret at all in hiring him?
I don't know that I share your view that I'm sure I share your review. Do I regret hiring him? That's a difficult question. If he hadn't been engaged in this inappropriate behavior, no, I wouldn't be disappointed in hiring. But his actions have resulted in me having to take this action.
Go with Nate. Time for a few more.
Jeff, was there any one thing of this was more egregious than another, or that was kind of the last straw in the hiring process?
Well, I think there are a number of things, but I think casting the negative light, negative publicity onto our program, onto our university, onto our athletic program, that was the one of the factors, probably more key factor.
Okay, we'll go in the back to Trey.
Jeff, Trey there with Canopy Razorback Nation. You said that nobody's bigger than the program, and Coach Petrino's actions or what he conveyed to you, you maybe feel like he felt that?
Yes, that's what I was trying to convey.
Go over here, John. All right. Right there.
Hey, Jeff, Barbara Ullman, Sports Talk with Bo Mattingly. With all this considered, how do you maintain the positive momentum of the football program on the field and in fundraising moving forward?
Well, the positive momentum starts with the student athletes in the program. It starts with those assistant coaches. And I think it continues through a Razorback fan base that loves the Hogs, and there's no question about that. I've said it many, many times that the University of Arkansas and our fan base is one of the most unique in America. I think after the disappointment, they will gather themselves and rally behind this football group of student athletes, this football program, and this university, which really, as all of you know that live here, represents the entire state of Arkansas.
We'll go with that.
Adam Alter, KNWA again. You said you hadn't made up your mind until you spoke with him today. What was it in that discussion that made
There wasn't one singular thing, Adam. There were a number of things we spoke about, and but I can't point to one thing that made the decision for me. It was accumulation of things. Many things influenced me in that discussion.
Clay?
Clay Henry, did he offer up any punishment that he would accept?
No, he did not.
Okay. Robbie, on here now. Go ahead and pass it in, please.
Jeff, I know your review dealt with the relationship, but did it uncover any NCAA violations or potential violations or any issues along those lines?
No, I didn't come across anything that I thought rose to the level of an NCAA violation. I don't think there was anything that was an NCAA matter in my review. It was a personnel matter.
We have time for two more, one in the back, and then we'll go to Bo.
I asked Jeff, have you received any sort of outcry or public response from the student body regarding your decision to fire Coach Petrino?
I have, today's been moving very quickly. I'm not aware of any outcry by the student body. I did engage the outgoing ASG president and recently and before the information was out, and he just offered his support for my process and my ultimate decision.
Take one final question from Bo.
Have you spoken with any members of the staff, and are they all on board? And particularly, I want to know about Paul Petrino with his relationship to Bobby. Obviously, there would be a question as to whether he plans to remain on the staff.
I met with the coaching staff, as I mentioned. I think all of them expressed to me that they believed that they had a great situation here at the University of Arkansas, that they felt like they had a great team, and that they were hopeful that that staff would remain together.
All right, thank you all very much.
Including Paul Petrino.
Thank you all very much.
Arkansas AD Jeff Long, Bobby Petrino fired as Arkansas coach. Let's look at the Razorbacks last season, 11-2 overall, 6-2 third in the SEC West, fifth in the final AP poll. And they have several notable returning players that many folks have said the Razorbacks are going to be pretty good. Tyler Wilson, Dennis Johnson. You see the players there coming up, returning in 2012. Top of the hour here on SportsCenter. Jay Harris, John Anderson, Joe Shad, Andre Ware joining the conversation. Called SEC games 3 years, including 2 Arkansas games last year. So I'm going to start with you, Andre. What's the one thing that you pulled out of Jeff Long's news conference there?
Well, basically that he was, distraught about having to do this with Bobby Petrino. I look at it as well. You look at this is a talented football team coming back. 7 starters on the offensive side, 6 on defense. You saw the list of offensive talent there, but what you fail to look at is defensively. They've got stars on every level. DeQuinta Jones on the defensive line, Alonzo Highsmith Jr.
Joe, Jeff Long, answer any of the questions you were looking to have answered here over the last 35 minutes.
Yeah, in terms of what we didn't necessarily know, Jeff Long used the phrase abuse of authority in saying that Bobby Petrino acted in an inappropriate fashion when choosing Jessica Durrell for a position with whom at least 150 people had applied. Jeff Long also saying that Petrino was misleading, manipulative, and deceptive. And of course, learning one thing we did not know, which is that Bobby Petrino had given this woman $20,000, which certainly didn't help Petrino's cause. You see there.
Jeff Long touched on it. You don't think that this becomes an NCAA matter, right? This no violation. This is strictly an in-house deal.
That's correct. Perhaps there could have been an SEC penalty had Long chosen to keep Petrino on staff.
It seems like from what he said, they've been talking and talking. Even up until today, there was a chance it could have gone the other way. Did you get that sense?
Well, I had sources in Arkansas saying that they'd been working on a contract deal where it could have kept Bobby Petrino there if he were willing to make some adjustments in his contract to if
things in the future happen, that they could fire him without having to pay him, and vice versa if he decided to leave and take a job elsewhere, that he would have to give money back to the Arkansas family. So he said no, and then it led to this.
Well, there's obviously further legal considerations here. Will Bobby Petrino sue to get some money from Arkansas? He just got a huge raise. I mean, this is crippling, obviously, to him professionally and financially. And then also, has Jessica Durrell hired an attorney? Will she continue to work at the university? Will she bring forth some type of sexual harassment lawsuit or some more other sort of lawsuit seeking a large sum of money from the school?
As he made this investigation, he laid out some things, and granted, the winners get to write history, and Jeff Long in this case is the winner, but knowingly misled the department in circumstances of the accident, relationship unfair with the job applicants, the large cash. It seemed almost like he really would have had to come up with something really good in his defense to keep his job. It was almost like this decision was made from 3:12 in the afternoon when he got the call finally from Petrino.
Totally agree with that. And speaking to sources close to Arkansas over the past week, I agree with the premise that Jeff Long was perhaps hoping that something would turn up that would enable him to justify keeping Bobby Petrino. I don't know if Jeff Long will ever publicly say this, but the way I read his body language, basically, he at some point in time, and he basically said today, I think, woke up and said, you know what? I don't want Bobby Petrino to represent my football program. I don't want him to represent my school. I don't trust him. He lied to me. He misled me. He deceived me. He acted inappropriately. Yes, I can fire him with cause, but more than anything, I don't want this guy in the office down the hall anymore.
And he said the search for a new coach begins tonight in earnest. He's going to start looking.
It wouldn't surprise me. We kind of hashed this out this afternoon. Where would they look if this indeed led to this? And I thought the smoothest transition that Arkansas can make in this situation is to go find Garrick McGee, convince him to come back to Fayetteville and be the head coach at Arkansas. Now, you say, well, it's crazy. He just took the job at UAB. Look at the circumstances in which Bobby Petrino was hired. He was coaching one day in the Georgia Dome. The next, he was yelling pig suey at a presser in Fayetteville, Arkansas. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that they will approach Garrick McGee maybe to come back to Arkansas.
We have in no way reached the finish line here, but if we were going to wrap with you guys, at the end of the day, Arkansas, which was terribly stained by this coming in, after we listened to Jeff Long, the university looks how right now?
I think they look good. You know, there was a lot of debate about whether or not it was a more difficult choice for Jeff Long to dismiss or keep Bobby Petrino. And certainly there had to be some internal pressure from boosters who donate a lot of money and love Bobby Petrino's success on the football field to keep him. But certainly from a national perspective, Jeff Long, Arkansas athletic director, able to go to sleep at night knowing that nationally, people are going to say he didn't put winning in front of morals. Yes, it's the SEC. Yes, it's difficult to win. Yes, Bobby Petrino is a good coach. But I made the choice to move on because I didn't want this guy to be mad.
Yeah, I commend him as well, Joe, because basically there were only a handful of Arkansas fans, actually more. You're not going to satisfy everybody in this deal, but when you stand up and you make a stance like this, it's all about how you represent the University of Arkansas, how it's painted nationally, and I agree. He did the exact right thing. This firing was worthy and I think just.
If you're going to err, best to err on the side of integrity and ethics.
We're going to move on. We're going to talk about the Bobby Petrino firing. And knowing how you all felt it was coming, we're going all in with Arkansas AD Jeff Long. No one is bigger than the team, the football program, or the University of Arkansas, Long said last night while giving every detail. And before saying he'd like to command a high-level football coach. I want to ask you guys how you feel about Arkansas today. Is today a good day for this Arkansas football program? Plashke, what do you think?
As hard as it's going to be for people down there to stomach, yes, this is a great day for the Arkansas football program. They took a stand for the education of the students. They took a stand for the morals of the program. They took a stand that people in the southeastern region who will be coming to their school, future recruits, their parents are going to love this. That this school doesn't mess around with lying. They don't mess around with with indiscretions like this. And the bottom line is they were the 5th-ranked team in the country at the end of last year. They're going to be in the top 5 next year. This is as great as Arkansas football has been in many, many years. And yet they said they're willing to throw it all away for the sake of the school's integrity. Good for them.
you make a lot of good points, but the thing about it is this is a bad day. This is a sad day in Fayetteville and throughout Arkansas. Of course, they should have gotten rid of Petrino, and I said 2 days ago, but this is going to be a smear on this program for the next 4, 5, 6 years, just like what we saw at Penn State in a different way. You think that was a good day when Petrino was fired? No, it wasn't. This is a black mark on what the Razorbacks have done in their glorious past. They shouldn't have brought Petrino in to begin with, and now they have to, long as the athletic director has to come out and say, we're dismissing him and going through all the things that happened.
So you think this is a smear on the program that's going to last for quite some time? I see you shaking your head, Bob Ryan.
No, because I totally agree with Bill Plaschke. This is one of the most proud days in the history of the school. The only thing missing was the athletic director saying, mea culpa, I never should have hired in the first place. I should have known. I'm sorry. Forgive me, please. We move on now. By the way, do they not have all the players coming back that we heard they were coming back last week? The answer is yes. So they still have the same core of players that's going to make them a top 10 team or 5 team next year. Number 2, the preliminary returns indicate that the key recruits are sticking with the program. They're going to come anyway. They'll lose a few, I'm sure, but not that many. They're going to have a great recruiting class. And number 3, they have simply done the right thing because this guy has no business ever being near the kids, again, as a alleged leader. He's not a leader of anybody except himself, right into the dumpster.
Mike Smith.
I don't believe Jeff Long left that press conference last night bumping Ice Cube, okay? It was not a good day for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Guys, you are wrong. Woody's absolutely right. They're a top 5 team, and they're looking for a head coach in April. They got an interim coach right now that they got to have to appoint because they can't take somebody else from another job at this point who would leave their situation to come and join Arkansas. Maybe, maybe not. Point is, they're in this position because they put themselves in this position, Bob Ryan. You just mentioned that. This is nothing but chickens coming home to roost. I'm watching that press conference last night, and I'm seeing Jeff Long get emotional, and I'm saying, man, I really feel sorry for him. Then I'm like, no, I don't. You knew who you were getting with Bobby Petrino. You knew how he tried to leave Louisville high and dry. We know how he left the Falcons. And then they got a 59% increase in value since 2009 for this program. Forbes estimated they're worth $89 million. So you know what? I don't feel sorry for Arkansas. They made their money on a guy with personal
wants
character.
to get in there.
Yeah, but there's so many. Arkansas could have easily covered this up and didn't. They could have hid this. They could have put him on probation. They could have done a lot of things. They did the right thing. Bob Ryan's
but it's still a bad day.
Bob Ryan?
No, I just don't know how anybody can endorse this or think it's a proud day for Arkansas, period.
What's to be proud of? You had Bobby Petrino as your coach. You knew what you were getting.
Well, now they have to find a new coach, and we heard from the AD yesterday he wants to find a high-level coach. Anyone have any suggestions? It's going to be hard
At
in
this
April.
point, they can't hire
Maybe they
Butch
can find a
Davis.
alum. Maybe Jimmy Johnson, alum of the school,
Sean
will come
Payton.
in and pick up
Sean
on
Payton, 4 years.
Next year. See you next
Sean
year.
Payton is very interesting as well.
He's interesting. 4 years.
And welcome to College Football Live. Mike Yam along with the man who won a Heisman Trophy, Andre Ware. Head coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks, Steve Spurrier, is going to join us in just a bit. But we start with Arkansas and the situation between Bobby Petrino and a 24-year-old in Jessica Durrell. Now, more than 4,300 text messages and 300 phone calls were exchanged over a 7-month period between the Hogs' former coach and Durrell, who had played volleyball at the school and was hired by Petrino to work in the football office. The interaction came on game days, before dawn, as well as when the police report was being released surrounding the motorcycle accident. Athletic Director Jeff Long, who was emotional at the press conference in which he fired Petrino, sat down with our Shelley Smith.
How did you find out that there was an inappropriate relationship between the two of them?
Well, it was when Coach Petrino called me at 3:12 on April 5th that he shared with me that that he had a passenger on the back of the motorcycle. But it wasn't until later that evening when we met in person here at the Broyle Center that he shared with me those details.
What did he say?
Well, he said he had more to share with me and that he had a relationship with Miss Durrell. And
why do you think he felt the need to tell you that?
well, I think he knew that it was time that he needed to come clean with me. Obviously, there was information in the police report that was coming out.
What kinds of investigation? Did you go through phone records? You go through?
Yeah, we reviewed phone records. Certainly, we did that. We mainly interviews with people, but phone records were one detail that we did review.
And what did you find in the phone records?
Numbers of calls, and those have
between the two of them.
Yes, calls and text. And
if you simply didn't know anything and you looked at those phone records, would you suspect something?
Yeah, the volume, the number, you would be concerned about.
Hundreds in a
several hundreds over multiple hundreds over a month period.
Where is Jessica Durrell now?
She's still an employee of the athletic department, but again, beyond that, I can't really comment on what Jessica is doing or where she is.
Going forward, what are the qualities you will look for in a new coach?
Well, honesty, integrity, those are the things that obviously you're going to jump out on. But we need a great football coach. Really want a coach who's a great football coach, X and O's, but also understands the bigger picture of what we're trying to do for young people in our program.
Did you think you were getting that when you hired Bobby Petrino in 2007?
Yeah, when I looked at Coach Petrino, I certainly knew him when I was in the Big East at Pitt. I had teams that competed against him. Now, I believed I was getting a stern taskmaster, and again, I've been around a lot of coaches who are very disciplined, very direct, and very tough. And Coach Petrino, I think, is all of those things.
When you find out that he's not the man of character that you thought he was, what does that do to your thinking about the way you analyze who's who?
Obviously, again, the only thing I think of is I'm disappointed. And, Coach Petrino has many good qualities. In this case, he made some mistakes, and I think he regrets that.
What was the last thing you said to him?
I said, good luck. And he said, last thing he said to me is, I'm sorry.
Well, the biggest question right now surrounding this program is who takes over for Bobby Petrino. We've heard Nebraska's Bo Pelini say not him. Skip Holtz says he's not interested. Arkansas State head coach Gus Malzahn, he also says he's not in play for this job. So in your mind, when you look at that next coach, if it's not going to be those three, then who is it?
Well, first of all, I think it needs to happen fast. And you want to take your time, but I don't know if Arkansas has the luxury of doing so. So you would err on the side of continuity. Taver Johnson's done a nice job of running this team throughout the spring. But Jeff Long mentioned honesty, integrity, about being direct, toughness, but fair. That, to me, is describing Garrick McGee, who is a head coach at University of Alabama, Birmingham. He is a guy that is passionate about Arkansas football. He knows the administration, the coaches, the players there, and he was a hot coaching prospect the last 2 seasons. He would be the interim head coach if this all unfolded and he was still on campus. So I think they've got to find a way to even to really talk to Garrick McGee to see if he's interested in that job.
Well, there are some ripple effects in terms of the recruiting right now. Running back Jamel James, he's actually decommitted from Arkansas. Only had 2 commits did Arkansas, and both of those at this point have decommitted. And for more, ESPN National Recruiting Director Tom Luginbill joins us here on College Football Live. And Lugs, how important is it going to be for Jeff Long, the AD, to make a decision on Petrino's successor?
Well, I think it's going to be very important from the standpoint that you'd like to be able to have your assistant coaches get out on the road here in the next 10 days to 2 weeks and be able to have some answers. They're going to be asked a lot of questions, and right now there's no answers. And so if Jeff Long can get a head coach in place and he can start formulating a staff, and like Andre mentioned, that's why a guy like Garrick McGee could be important because there's already familiarity within the current staff. They could salvage their spring evaluation period if they chose to go that route. And so I think it's very important. The one saving grace they have is head coaches are not allowed on the road during the evaluation period. So whether Arkansas has one and everybody else does, at least that person can't be on the road and get an advantage over Arkansas at this time.
That's a great point. Tom Luginbill with the impact of a decision, a quick decision for Jeff Long trying to pick out Bobby Petrino's successor. Coach, unrelated to your team, Bobby Petrino obviously fired at Arkansas this week. In your mind, how difficult is it going to be for the school to replace a guy at that caliber?
Well, again, as coaches, we don't know the whole situation. I've been reading more about it in part of his situation, even today, something that happened several days ago. So you don't know all the circumstances that lead to coaches being dismissed or so forth. It's certainly sad, I guess is the best word to use. But as coaches nowadays, there's a fine line we all have to walk. I think we all understand that. But I don't know what they'll go about doing it. You would think they would keep their coaching staff intact, hired either an interim coach or maybe name one of those guys head coach, rather than bringing in a whole new group of guys. But again, that's their call, and to me, sometimes none of us know what's best. I always say time will tell you if you made a decision if it was the best one or not.
Ready for a Facebook question?
Yeah.
All right, this is from Dan Foltz. If players like Tyler Wilson or Niall Davis become unhappy with the situation at Arkansas, would they be eligible to enter the supplemental draft?
I've had to answer this question so much from my Arkansas Razorback friends, and the answer is no. Listen, you would have to be disqualified academically or maybe get kicked out of school. And in fact, they find out you do that deliberately, like Terrell Pryor, you're going to pay a penalty. And the supplemental draft, you had your chance to turn pro by January 15th. In fact, Tyler Wilson, the quarterback, who might have been a first rounder, decided to stay in school. And he's got an offensive coordinator in Paul Petrino. In fact, I think even Bobby Petrino was serving as administrative lead. I think that Tyler was like 23 out of 26 in a scrimmage for 300+ yards and 6 touchdowns. They will both stay in school. They're not eligible for that supplemental draft unless something dramatic happens.
But we start with Arkansas and a Hogs team that's trying to move forward, but that is hard to do as this story continues to develop. We know Bobby Petrino has already been fired by Arkansas, but there's new news surrounding his status, as well as the status of Jessica Durrell, the 25-year-old who had a relationship with Petrino. George Smith is in Fayetteville and has more.
The university has placed Jessica Durrell on paid leave. She's the 25-year-old football department employee who was involved in an inappropriate relationship with Coach Bobby Petrino. And there is some other news. Petrino will not challenge his firing. That was confirmed by his attorneys in a note to Arkansas's athletics director, Jeff Long. In that note, Petrino again accepted responsibility for all that led to his termination. He expressed his disappointment, but added that he wished the best for the Arkansas football program and for the university. As for the search for a new head coach, athletics director Jeff Long wrote on his Twitter account that he had not reached out to anybody about the position. So it's still not clear if he'll opt for an interim coach or try to find a permanent one. Now, Arkansas's players and coaches have not been available to talk about all the turmoil surrounding their program. They're back on the field and they will scrimmage today. We're told we'll hear from several players after that scrimmage. We'll also hear from Taver Johnson, associate head coach, and the offensive coordinator, Paul Petrino, Bobby Petrino's brother. That's the very latest here. Mike, back to you.
All right, George. Well, there is another wrinkle in this story. The Associated Press filed a Freedom of Information Act, requested and obtained text messages between Petrino and the athletic department. On April 6th, the day after he was put on paid leave, Petrino received a text from Arkansas assistant AD Chris Wyrick saying, "Coach, I know sometimes I aggravate you, but please listen to me. Does Jeff know everything from your standpoint?" Jeff meaning Jeff Long, the AD. Petrino's response, "Yes, I believe he does. Is the mood to fire me or to keep me? I can honestly speak to Long's pulse on that, but my gut is he wants to work it out." That's what Wyrick wrote. "You've done the job, and most feel like you are due a mulligan." At about the same time, Petrino texted someone only identified as Andy to ask, "Can they get content off my text?" Andy replied, "I think they can only get who you text." Now, the following day, Petrino sent a text to athletic director Jeff Long, quote, "I just want you to know how sorry I am. This all happened." Now, Andre, let's move forward to Arkansas on the field right now. Taver Johnson, you heard George Smith talk about him. He's got that interim tag right now. How difficult is it to coach when you don't have the official head coaching title?
Not difficult at all, because every coach wants the opportunity to become a head coach. NFL draft's coming up, right? So they're going to tell a lot of players after they're drafted, they move to camp, that, hey, you're not just auditioning for us, you're auditioning for 31 other teams. Well, the same with Taver Johnson, 100+ schools. All eyes are on him and what he does at Arkansas. And I think he owns this and takes control of that situation. Coach it like you would coach if it were your football team for the long term until notified otherwise.
Andre, the good thing that he has going for him is he's got a lot of great pieces already in the fold on his roster. Now, we don't know if Johnson's going to be that next guy. The odds are, though, that it could potentially be someone else. And according to Bovado.com, the front runners are Arkansas State's Gus Malzahn, UAB's Garrick McGee, a guy that you talked about on the show yesterday, Andre, South Florida's Skip Holtz, Alabama defensive coordinator Kirby Smart, and TCU's Gary Patterson. Now, Malzahn and McGee are former offensive coordinators at Arkansas.
Well, it has been 11 days since Petrino was fired as the head coach of the Razorbacks, and we have seen some real examples of leadership emerge from the players and the coaches.
Absolutely, especially Tyler Wilson. I had the luxury of watching practice earlier this week, and I was so impressed with the control of his arm, the control of the offense, and the control of the team that Tyler Wilson has right now. When the news came down that Bobby Petrino was fired, Tyler Wilson took command of this football team to another level. You see what he told to his guys, and he understands a life lesson at a young age. Life is more about how you respond to things than what happens to you. This Arkansas football program, I think they have the best leader in college football in that quarterback spot in Tyler Wilson. He was built to handle adversity under Bobby Petrino. Adversity hit, and Tyler Wilson has stood it right face to face.
And we are, of course, impressed with his leadership. We are also impressed with his ability to throw the football. The question going into 2012, though, Jimmy, is who will he throw the football to?
Well, he has a lot of weapons. This is an Arkansas offense that recruits wide receivers by the bucketfuls. This year, Kobe Hamilton will be the guy. Very physical now, 6'3", 210, a primetime target. The longer the route becomes, the faster this kid is. Tyler Wilson has a lot of trust in number 11. He'll get a lot of touches today. He'll get a lot of touches next fall. Kobe Hamilton, hard to guard if you're a defensive back.
Last year, it was a record 42,000 on hand to watch the spring game. Will they surpass that today in the Ozarks? We'll find out next. Of the spring football game, I think they nodded to him there and gave him the first play from scrimmage, and now it's Ronnie Wingo in there at tailback, and he slides through 2 tackles, and he's got a little bit of field to run through, lowers his head. You like to see that.
His name is Petrino.
That's right.
And that's a family name that a lot of gambling going on that offensive side of the ball. They don't want to give it up.
Coming right back to Kobe Hamilton is Tyler Wilson. Pretty good coverage on the play, but second down and goal as Johnson comes out of the backfield. And Wilson to throw again, goes end zone for Gregg. Touchdown, Red Squad.
Coaching staff could all be gone, and practice would run the same. That's the feel that this kid has in every area.
Brandon Mitchell running the offense for the white team. Spring game for the Razorbacks. The starters in red, the reserves in white, and Tyler Wilson going back to work, and a wide open Marquell Wade has lots of real estate as he gets up inside white. Wilson again has time to set and throws, complete to Hamilton, who breaks a tackle, and Kobe gets close to the goal line, down to the 1. 5 catches now in the spring game for Kobe Hamilton. Ronnie Wingo will get in the end zone. Touchdown, Red Squad. With 2 touchdowns so far on this April afternoon. Throws into tight coverage, and the catch is made by Keontae Minor. Walker again, this time off the right side, and he is met and stood up and pushed back immediately.
Throughout their coaching career have been either an offensive or a defensive coordinator. So there's a lot of stuff there to work with, and a lot of stuff to work with right there between Tyler Wilson and Chris Gregg.
Gregg running away from the defense. Scores the 3rd red touchdown, a 60-yard pass and catch. Tyler Wilson to Chris Gregg.
You know, he did a phenomenal job of being one of the faces of Arkansas football, especially as an upperclassman. And now the face of Arkansas football is number 8 in that red jersey that just completes it to Marquell Wade.
And it's red zone time again for the red team. Dennis Johnson shaking 3, maybe 4 tackles. Didn't quite get out of that 4th one, but a good gain on first down.
After the long completion, boom, they were back up and organized and into a run play. You cannot throw a football any better than that to Marquell Wade. You talk about a guy with 4.3, 4.4 speed who was at full tilt on the catch.
Johnson gets to the outside, heads to the pylon, and he's in. Another touchdown for Red Squad.
And the Arkansas offense so far in the first half of the red-white game, the red team is clicking. My guys talk too much on defense, and it's another area of improvement Paul Haynes has wanted to see.
Wilson looking for Hamilton again, and Kobe catches it off his back shoulder and is brought down in white territory at the 35-yard line. A big, big gain.
18 yards per catch, I think, in his career. So he's a He's a big play target.
And here's Wingo with a big hole off the right tackle.
Obviously, probably the toughest decision of his athletic director career on his plate right now. But Arkansas can do a lot worse than going with Paul Petrino or Tim Horton or maybe a couple of other guys on that staff.
Brandon Allen at quarterback. Over the middle, incomplete. A big hit that time.
You know, you look down there at Tyler Wilson and Dennis Johnson.
Here's Wingo off the right side, and he's in for another red touchdown. Chris Smith, Trey Flowers, a couple of guys who had a lot of experience last year. Mitchell connects over the middle to Demetrius Dean, and that time highly accurate has been Tyler Wilson. Deep over the middle, caught in stride by Wade, and he is ankle tackled.
Take a timeout. We'll come back with more from Fayetteville. You're watching the Red-White Spring Football Game here on CST.
For a 7-yard gain. Wilson looking right this time, and a good defensive play. Knocking the ball away from Dennis Johnson. The intended receiver was Jarrett Lake, the junior from Jinx, Oklahoma.
Georgia Greater Atlanta Christian High School. And the concentration right there. I mean, through a set of hands, bam. Very well done by Julian Horton to concentrate and keep his chin up on that ball.
Handoff Wingo, bounces outside and goes to the end zone. Another red touchdown. Ronnie Wingo gets the first points of the second half of the Red. They're on top big.
National champions in football and back-to-back national champions produced in baseball, I believe. And Paul Petrino said the same thing earlier this week, and he knows what a legitimate big-time college quarterback looks like, and Arkansas has 3 of them.
Dennis Johnson lowering his head and driving through Jarrett Lake. Brock Bowling standing by with last year's sack king.
That's right, here with Jake Beckett, Scott. And Jake, first of all, welcome back to the spring game here this year. What are your thoughts on this?
Signal caller now for the white squad. Hands off to Cody Walker, and Walker has room, and it slowly closes as he fumbles the football, and it is picked up by the Red. Johnson in motion out of the backfield. Allen on first down and 10, drops the snap, picks it up, fires over the middle, it's caught, and a Red team score. Julian Horton.
Getting ready to have a big-time impact on college football next year.
Hitter's pass is picked off by Kelly Brew, and Kelly Brew is going to make it to the 20, shakes off a tackler and knocked out of bounds at the 15-yard line.
And if it's used right, then I'm all for it.
Bootleg by Mitchell, and he's got smooth sailing into the end zone for another Red touchdown. They had the play set up to be behind Kiero Small and the give to Wingo, but the fake went to Wingo. And well, as the Red and White teams meet at midfield, we'll step aside. A final of 65-0 in a Red rout in the 2012 spring game. Back in a moment.
Here's what's happening on SportsCenter at this hour. Reports say Arkansas are bringing back former assistant John L. Smith next year to replace Bobby Petrino. He left the Razorbacks after last season to become the head coach at Weber State, but he's coming back to Fayetteville.
Back on SportsCenter as the Arkansas Razorbacks continue to steady things in the football program. The school will announce tomorrow that John L. Smith is taking over as head coach, thus filling the void left by Bobby Petrino's motorcycle wreck. Smith will leave Weber State to take over. He's been a head coach at Louisville, Michigan State previously. Petrino actually succeeded Smith with the Colonels in 2003. So a little more, who is John L. Smith? You may not. He's been out of the limelight recently. Football lifer, quarterback linebacker at Weber State. Spent 18 years as an assistant coach. First head coaching job came at Idaho. 132 games won over 18 years, most notably, as we mentioned, Louisville and Michigan State. 3 years on staff as special teams coach in Fayetteville under Petrino through the last season. Then, of course, turned that around for really getting settled again in Utah. ESPN National College Football reporter Joe Schad is joining us here on SportsCenter to talk about the Hogs. And first off, why has Athletic Director Jeff Long decided that John L. Smith was the guy to sort of come in and take over at the moment?
Didn't have a ton of options, first off. I mean, it was a terrible timing, terrible spot that Bobby Petrino left him in. But what John L. Smith brings is familiarity. There's a comfort level there for both the players on the team and also the assistant coaches. 8 of the 9 coaches on Arkansas staff have previously coached with John L. Smith, and the players didn't want to shake things up. These guys, Tyler Wilson, Niall Davis, they went to Jeff Long and they said, we want to run the same offensive system. We want to run the same defensive system. We don't want to bring in a full-time head coach. We don't want to learn a new system. We think we can go after a championship. We know John L. Smith. We like him. We think he's the right fit.
And vast experience at big programs in Louisville and Michigan State. Now, here's sort of the rub. It's a 1-year contract, but they didn't put the interim tag on him. So what's his situation going forward?
He's an ambassador. He's a figurehead. His role is to not get in the way and not mess things up. Now, he's going to handle the media. He's going to handle the boosters. And he's going to try to win the SEC, which Arkansas thinks they have a chance to do. The reason John L. Smith leaves Weber State, his alma mater, never coached a game there, is the chance to be a champion in the SEC, maybe a national championship. I'm going to say if John L. Smith brings Arkansas a national championship,
right,
he'll get the option. He can come back. Otherwise, we're going to have a coaching search in November or December. Arkansas gets a head start on all those other openings we see every year.
SEC championship, not enough.
National championship.
Division title, not enough.
National.
SEC's very hard football conference. I don't know if you knew that.
That's their goal.
Joe Schad, the Hogs call on John L. Smith. Season opener September 1st versus Jacksonville State. As you mentioned, the players behind this hiring, says Niall Davis. I guess he tweeted, he didn't say this. The guy coming off knee surgery, going to be one of the best in the SEC. The happiest day of my life, hearing that John L. Smith is coming back to the Ville, assuming that's Fayetteville, not Louisville, to be our head coach. B should be spelled B-E.
College game, Arkansas bringing back former assistant John L. Smith next year to replace Bobby Petrino as interim head coach. He left the Razorbacks after last season, become the head guy at Weber State, but he's coming back to Fayetteville on a 1-year deal. Our analysts react.
They play hard for him, and this is the perfect situation for him to step into. He's familiar with the players, he's familiar with the program, and he's in a position where he can go and lead, and he can get out of the way and oversee by letting his coordinators do the job.
He's been there in Fayetteville and knows almost all the coaches. I think he's coached with 8 of the 9 assistant coaches. So there's familiarity. And I think because they're bringing back so many experienced players, I would have been shocked, to be honest with you, if Arkansas would have decided to go outside to bring somebody else in. I think it's a great decision by Arkansas.
Well, John L., known for fiery antics on the sidelines, he actually slapped himself once in a press conference and gave this analysis as he left for halftime.
A miscalculation there, and you're upset. Tell me about it.
I'm very upset. We should have been in a ball game with fast field goal. The coach had sent him in. We shouldn't have sent him in. That's a dang coaching mistake. The kids are playing their tail off, and the coaches are screwing it up.
Gilmore and Rod, we have a developing story here as it now appears that Arkansas is prepared to name their next head coach tomorrow. And it is John L. Smith, who was an assistant at Arkansas the last 3 years. We remember him, of course, as the head coach at the likes of Michigan State and Louisville as well. Mm-hmm. What do you think about the move? It is a 1-year term for John L. Smith.
Well, I think it's pretty interesting, pretty fascinating. You think about this. Think about the New Orleans Saints situation where Sean Payton wanted Bill Parcells to come in. This is very similar to that. A lot of history between Petrino and John L. Smith. Petrino was an assistant under John L. Smith for a long, long time and then returned the favor a couple of years ago and had John L. Smith on his staff for about 3 seasons. Now, John L. Smith knows the system, knows it well, knows the players, and this is a really good team. So now you have a veteran head coach, a guy who's experienced that can step in with a team that's really, really good and then give them that steady leadership they need for administrative issues, dealing with the media, and making those tough decisions on the field. The negative side of it, though, is that you have John L. Smith leaving Weber State, where he just went just a few months ago, and sort of leaves them without a head coach. So that's a tough situation. Then the other part of it, if you've watched John L. Smith over his career, he's made some curious or interesting decisions during games and has come under criticism for that. And so he's going to be under the spotlight with a team this good, with every decision he makes in a critical game and in the SEC, no doubt about it.
Athletic Director Jeff Long, of course, handling this situation, and it has been a tough situation all the way through. Let's bring in Joe Shadnow, our insider. John L. Smith, Joe, to be named the head coach tomorrow. What else can you tell us?
Well, Ryan, John L. Smith approached Arkansas. He really wasn't on the radar. He had been on the staff the last 3 years as special teams coach, but had returned to Weber State for what figured to be his retirement job. Instead, John L. Smith takes this job basically understanding it's a one-year opportunity to coach a contender. There's great familiarity. 8 of the 9 assistants on staff John L. Smith has coached with. He coached with Bobby Petrino for 4 years. So there was the thought in Jeff Long's mind, the athletic director, if I bring in an outsider, would the current roster, would the assistant coaches in any way reject that individual? Could that have a negative impact on the season? With John L. Smith, they believe he's the perfect fit.
Well, as you said, these guys have coached together before. Petrino was his assistant coach at Louisville, and obviously he's been Petrino's assistant, John L. Smith, the last 3 years. My question was this. You said John L. Smith approached Arkansas. How much of this has Petrino's handprint on it? How much has the players demanding that someone comes in that knows their current scheme?
It's undeniable that John L. Smith has been a guiding hand, a mentor for Bobby Petrino throughout the years. I mean, they coached together at Arkansas, Michigan State, Louisville, Utah State. And there's also no doubt that from the start, the players made it clear to Jeff Long that they want to keep the same offensive system in place with Petrino's brother Paul, that they want to allow Taver Johnson and Paul Haynes to run their defense. The timing was terrible. Jeff Long didn't have a ton of options. What he's come up with is a guy who can essentially handle the media responsibilities, handle the booster responsibilities, and allow the coaches to coach.
Rod Gilmore obviously brought up the Weber State situation. Joe, do we know at this point, has Weber State given John L. Smith their blessing to do this for 1 year?
We don't have any information from Weber State just yet. One thing I would point to is the extreme uniqueness of this situation. John L. Smith was returning home to coach Weber State, essentially as his retirement position. I don't think anybody there at Weber State would ever have anticipated that the Arkansas head coaching position would open at this time. So certainly the unusual circumstances and unusual solution, but I don't think a terrible one.
Breaking news, Joe Shad with the very latest. Thanks so much, Joe. Bring back in Rod Gilmore. And Rod, we hear Joe talk about the situation and this is likely going to be a top 5 team, top 10 for sure, with all the offensive talent they have coming back. Your immediate thoughts?
Well, I think it's a strong move, but I think what's really interesting is what it says about what Jeff Long believes. He believes this is a national championship team. That's the only reason you make this move. He looked around at his staff, and he didn't feel comfortable in trusting this team to newcomers to the offense and the defense to handle all the head coaching job responsibilities when they have a team that's this loaded. So I think Arkansas really believes that they have a legitimate shot this year to win the SEC and win a national championship, and that's why you make this move to bring in John L. Smith, and you don't take someone from your staff who doesn't have the experience to deal with this type of a team in this high-pressured situation.
And you wonder how much Saturday's spring game had to do with Jeff Long's decision, as offensively, Arkansas put on an absolute show in that game with Tyler Wilson, the great quarterback, leading the way. Taver Johnson at the time was the acting head coach. We just heard Joe said he'll stay in charge of the defense. Red zone, Tyler Wilson on target.
Well, Tyler Wilson is something, but remember, they get Now Davis back, and he didn't play in this game. He had that ankle injury, missed last season. They'll have a potent offense when you add him to this mix. They already could throw it pretty well. Now they can do something from the line of scrimmage, giving him the football.
31 of 41, 467 yards for Tyler Wilson. I know it's a spring game, but that is a message sent.
Yeah, the message is they will score points. There's no question about that. The issue will be how good their defense will be. Can they handle the likes of Alabama, LSU during the season? That is the question for Arkansas, but they can put up a lot of points. Tyler Wilson now being an experienced guy. This is not his first season. You get Davis back in the running back position, and then they've got a bevy of receivers. They will score points.
Rod, a question for you here. In the locker room, the fact that John L. Smith has been there for 3 years, it is a familiar face. How much will that mean to this team as far as being able to exhale and move ahead business as usual?
I think they were probably worried. I think the guys in that team were worried about what was going to happen, who would come in, and how would the assistant coaches act in the role of a head coach. Now you don't have that. John L. Smith probably knows these players better than Tabor and some of the other guys who came in this season. So they have that history. They know what they're getting. And more importantly, they know Bobby Petrino trusts John L. Smith. And that's important to those players.
I guess my biggest question here is we take a little look at John L. Smith's resume. The career numbers at Michigan State, his last head coaching post weren't great, 22 and 26. That's from 03 to 06. Your concerns with John L. Smith as this hire?
Well, I think the negative is that there have been these curious decisions in the heat of the moment in big games for Michigan State. Michigan State fans can recount almost every game for you where that happened. And that's going to be the scrutiny for John L. Smith when he plays Alabama, when he plays LSU. How does he handle that? Is he able to make the conservative decision, the right decision, and trust his team, or does he take the easy way out and roll the dice on a trick play or something that could come back and haunt them? I think that's the question a lot of folks will have about him as a head coach with such a good team.
All right, obviously that is the top story for today as Arkansas has got their guy, John L. Smith. Let's bring in Matt Millen now. And Matt, obviously John L. Smith will be introduced on Tuesday as Arkansas's head coach for a one-year term. Your immediate thoughts on the breaking news?
Well, much like the same that you just heard, the biggest thing is consistency. You have to have consistency. And the value that John L. brings is, he's there. He knows the team well. He knows the staff well. There won't be a lot of turnover. There won't be a lot of change. And he has head coaching experience. He's at Michigan State last. I think he was there for about maybe 4 or 5 years. But he's been a head coach for a long time. He won't be surprised by things. And the biggest thing is the players won't be surprised by things. So there'll be a smooth transition. And that, given the players and team that he has right now, that bodes well for them because, they're a legitimate team.
John L. Smith, known as a defensive coach, a linebackers coach, a special teams coach when he's not a head coach. What kind of role do you think he'll take with this Arkansas team that is obviously dominated by their offense?
I think he'll take a role that says, listen, let's just let them play. Petrino has, they've put together some good recruiting class. They've put together offensive firepower. John L. has been around around the team, obviously, because he knows them. And so what you'll end up getting is a coach will say, listen, let's let the offense handle itself. We'll tweak it when we have to, if we have to. But for the most part, it's just kind of letting it run itself. You don't want to upset the apple cart right now because they have too many things in place.
Matt, last thing here. It's been about 2 weeks now since Bobby Petrino has been fired. Tabor Johnson, the first interim coach, they play the spring game. And then on Tuesday, John L. Smith becomes the head coach for the next season. Your thoughts on how A.D. Jeff Long has handled this entire ordeal from A to Z?
I think he's done a good job given what he's had. He obviously was surprised like everybody else. And then betrayed, and then did the work that he had to do. And again, a one-year job. It'll give him time. It'll buy him time. It's from within. There won't be a lot of change. And so, I think Jeff's done a pretty darn good job given the hand that he's been dealt.
All right, our ESPN college football analyst Matt Millen, the latest on the breaking news of John L. Smith as the interim head coach at Arkansas. And Matt brought up some good points there. Press conference expected in Fayetteville on Tuesday. We now move into summer and then ultimately fall camp. How much of a relaxing stage will this all be once they hit camp when they're really ready to go?
I think it's going to be very relaxing for the players there. And I think you have to consider that there's the hand of Bobby Petrino back there. He and John L. Smith have been friends for a long time. That's not just going to go away. And there's nothing that prevents Bobby Petrino from talking to John L. Smith on a regular basis, even watching Arkansas games and giving him some feedback. So I think whenever there's a little bump in the road for John L. Smith, he'll be able to turn to Bobby Petrino. And the players will know that as well. And I think there's that continuity there that even though it's not formal.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of a fired coach staying hands-on like that?
No, I can't think of it off the top of my head. This is really a unique situation, but that relationship, it's not going to evaporate. And I think Bobby Petrino is invested in this team because of how good it is and what he's built there. And to have his good friend run this program now, I think he's still going to have a little bit of a say, a little bit of a hand in helping John L. Smith with these players.
John L. Smith, who's been a head coach for 18 seasons, on Tuesday he will take over the Arkansas Razorbacks on an interim basis for the upcoming season. A developing story here on College Football Live. Breaking news, John L. Smith will be named the head coach at Arkansas on Tuesday in a press conference. Of course, Bobby Petrino was fired April 10th, just about 2 weeks ago. Welcoming Kirk Herbstreit. And Herbie, your reaction to John L. Smith heading back to Arkansas, where he was an assistant coach the past 3 years?
Well, I think that's the key, is he's been there in Fayetteville and knows almost all the coaches. I think he's coached with 8 of the 9 assistant coaches. So there's familiarity. And I think because they're bringing back so many experienced players, I would have been shocked, to be honest with you, if Arkansas would have decided to go outside to bring somebody else in, the way some of the rumors that were out there. Here you bring in John L. Smith, as you said, the last 3 years on the staff. He knows everything about this program. The continuity will be able to be maintained. I think it's a great decision by Arkansas. I think that they still can kind of circle the wagons, use all these distractions as something to rally around, and they're very fortunate to have some experience and some veterans on this team to help John L. Smith. But I'll tell you what, he's going to be entertaining. To see John L. Smith over the years at Louisville and then up at Michigan State, he is a guy that you always get excited to watch his press conferences because you never know what he might say.
AD Jeff Long, just about every move along the way the past 2 weeks has been right on, it would seem. How much of this move do you think is the fact that at the end of the day, he really believes he is a national title contender and he needs to have somebody in here that has been around the ring, so to speak?
Well, I think I think he feels that he has a team because of the experience that he brings back, especially on the offensive side of the ball. These guys have been in the big games. I think that you imagine bringing somebody in from the outside and having to try to learn either a new system or having that coach kind of adjust to some new people and some new personnel. I mean, we're closing in on May. This isn't something that's done in January. So I'm very interested to see how this works out. I think it was a great decision by Arkansas, as I said, and I think to be able to maintain the continuity despite what's happened with Bobby Petrino, this kind of helps them move on and kind of put that behind them, move forward into the post-era, the spring ball, and get ready for two-a-days and see if Tyler Wilson and these guys can come together as a group in the summer and get ready to compete in the toughest division in all of college football. So I think it's a good move. The challenging thing is, what if he does do what you just said? What if they go win 11? What if they go win 12? What if they beat Alabama? What if they beat LSU? It'd be interesting to see what decision they have to make if they end up having the kind of year that their fans hope they have.
Herbie, are there any red flags, so to speak, with the hire that we will see tomorrow with John L. Smith? Successful at Louisville. Things did not go that well at Michigan State, as we indicated. 22-26 record there in 3+ years in East Lansing. Any red flags from your standpoint in the hire?
No, I don't see any. I mean, you're going to have some people probably have some fun with some of the things that he has said when he's been interviewed, especially some of the walk-offs at halftime. When he kind of yelled, I think it was a jackaroo, and one time he smacked himself in the face, and that seemed to create a big buzz because, you just never know what to expect from him with a live interview. And so some people might have some fun with that. But I mean, the guy's he's proven. He's got a track record. He was the Big Ten Coach of the Year in 2003 at Michigan State. He's had a lot of success when he was at Louisville, and for him to be able to approach Arkansas, they didn't go to him. He came to Arkansas and said, "Hey, I want to have a chance to do this, I can maintain that continuity. We can keep this thing going." I think that's probably ultimately what they decided to do. I've said all along, I would have been very, very surprised if they decided to go outside the box and bring somebody else in. So as we sit here right now, this is probably the best decision that they could have come up with.
Last thing, Herbie, John L. Smith and Bobby Petrino they've been tied in their past for sure. They coached together at 4 different colleges. Can you see Bobby Petrino behind the scenes still having a role with this Arkansas team?
I don't think so, just because of the circumstances. I mean, his brother is on the staff, and, I don't think it has anything to do with his relationship with John L. Smith. I think, with his brother being there, you could kind of bring up that same question. Because of the circumstances, though, I think the university has made it very clear that they're going to go in another direction. So I don't think that you'll see Bobby kind of texting anybody to say, hey, here's what you need to do, or here's a play that I would call. I think at this point it's John L. Smith and these 9 assistants and this team, and see what they can do.
A new head hog in Fayetteville.
Yes, the former head hog, by the way, he approves of the hire, in case you were wondering. The Bobby Petrino era ended about 2 weeks ago, and the John L. Smith era begins today. Fayetteville, Arkansas, that's where we are going as the introduction becomes official. John L. Smith was with Arkansas for 3 seasons from 2009 through 2011 as an assistant coach. He left 5 months ago to be a head coach at his alma mater, Weber State. But then the Petrino scandal ensued, and John L. Smith gave a call to University of Arkansas Athletics Director Jeff Long and said, hey, I'd like to come back, consider me, and they did. Now he's the head coach. As I said, Bobby Petrino, the former coach, approves of this hire. Here's his quote: I think Jeff Long made a great hire. While there were several outstanding internal candidates, John L. brings a lot of head coaching experience to the table that will help Arkansas's transition. He will unify the staff, the team, and the Razorback fan base. I wish Coach Smith, his staff, and the Arkansas football team the very best. As for Mr. Smith, here's his record: 132-86 in 18 seasons at 4 different schools. Again, he was the special teams inside linebackers coach as the assistant at Arkansas from 2009 through 2011. Petrino was an assistant under Smith at Idaho, Utah State, and Louisville, so those two go way back. And again, a graduate of Weber State in 1971. The introduction about to take place, live coverage here on SportsCenter. John L. Smith about to be introduced.
Gentlemen.
Here is the athletic
And
director,
ladies.
Jeff Long.
All right, good afternoon. Appreciate everyone being here. Thank you for joining us here in the Broyles Center, as well as those who join us across the state and around the nation. Two weeks ago today, we set out on a search to find a new head coach for the University of Arkansas. My goal was to find a coach who could lead our program and to help us meet our mission of developing student athletes on and off the field. Certainly the timing certainly the timing and specific circumstances of this process carried some real challenges for us. Every search is unique, but this one was especially so. But today, I firmly believe we have hired a coach that will serve in the best interests of our student athletes and the university, both in the upcoming season and in helping us shape the long-term future of our program. There's no question in my mind that this was the best decision for this team for the 2012 season. I've been impressed with the overall maturity of this team throughout the process, and I've been particularly impressed with its leaders. In my conversations with them, they expressed their continued focus on their goals for this upcoming season and the confidence in the football staff we have here. I also have a tremendous amount of confidence in the assistant coaches and believe they will continue to succeed in their current roles under Coach Smith's leadership. The past few weeks have only reaffirmed my belief that our football program remains fundamentally sound and strong, and we remain committed to building on our recent success. I also believe this is the right decision for the future of our program. By appointing Coach Smith for the 2012 season, it will allow us to take the time necessary to identify the right coach for the future. And most importantly, do so in a time frame that is conducive to attracting the candidates we would expect for one of the nation's premier college football head coaching positions. When Coach Smith approached me about returning to Arkansas, he shared with me his concern for the young men in the program and our assistant coaches. He also shared his passion to be part of the continued development of the Razorback football program. There are certainly many reasons that led me to conclude that John L. Smith was the right person for this task. Coach Smith has been in college football for nearly 40 years and has had extensive head coaching experience, including in BCS level programs. He has led student athletes and coaches through demanding college football seasons. He is one of only 19 coaches in college football history to take 3 different schools to a bowl game. He has a personal investment in our student athletes, our coaching staff, and what we built here at the University of Arkansas. At this time, it's my honor and my pleasure to formally introduce head football coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks, John L. Smith.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I've got a couple things jotted here. It's not going to be near as eloquent as Jeff was by any means, but I want to let you know that I'm very, very excited to be here, and I want to say thank you to Provost Gerhardt, number 1, Jeff Long, number 2, for having enough confidence in me to say, come on back and help us with the fight that we have to fight. And so I'm excited to be here. I want to thank them. And I'd like to, as well, thank my family, particularly my wife, Di. She's actually the one that made the decision to come here. I want you all to know that. We were struggling through this, and one night we're talking, and I said, you know, I don't know, what do we do? And I said, I've dragged you all over the country, you know, to different places, and you've not said a word except, yes, let's go. Okay, and I said, this decision's yours. She said, here's the deal. She said, you're going back to people that love you. You're going back to a team that is a good football team. And you have a chance to fight for a national championship. She said, you've done this your entire life, and this might be the only chance you have left. So she said, you're going back. And well, here I am. So we're anxious to get her here as well. So I want to say thank you to her. I want to thank the previous, or the coaches that are here currently, and say thank you to them for holding together and the work that they've put into it. And not only them, but the support staff that is here and what they've done to fight through this. And then I'd like to say thank you to the fans, the Razorback Nation, okay, for the support that you've shown during this time as well to hold this together. So thanks to all of you. And I'd like to say this. I would like to thank Jerry Bovee, who's the athletic director at Weber State, for giving me an opportunity to go back to my alma mater. No one could ever have foreseen this happening. So it's a decision I had to make. And again, thank him for understanding that I have a heavy investment here, and that was a decision that I had to make. So he was outstanding. He was super. You know, as you look and from the outside, and you kind of see what's taking place to that family that you love, and as you contemplate, you say, okay, is there something that I might be able to do? Can I go back? Can I help? Can I do something there? But with the relationship that I have with the staff, the players that are here, the fans that are here, hopefully, you know, I can make a difference, and we can fight through this and do what it is we have to do to get through the adversity. So I want to say that. Now, along those lines, I want to say that our expectations here are the same. Okay? Nothing's going to slow down. In fact, we're going to speed up. Our expectations are that we're going to go ahead and we're going to battle, and we're going to fight for a national title. And that was that way when I walked in the door here 3 years ago, and it's going to continue to be that way. And I know this, that not only the fans, but this football team and these coaches are going to embrace that challenge and say, let's go. Let's make it a special year. Everything's in place here. You've got a good football team. We've got the best fans in the world. We've got great coaches. Let's make it a special year. So I know they're going to embrace that, and we're going to make that happen. And gosh, that's about all I have to say, other than the fact that what a neat deal. $45,000 for the spring game just shows the attitude, the resilience of the Razorbacks out there. And let's just all lock arms and forge ahead and go win a championship. So that's all I have to say, except thank you again. And no clapping.
No clapping allowed. He's tough. John L. Smith, the new head coach at the University of Arkansas. Let's get some reaction now, and for that we welcome in college football analyst Brock Heward. Brock joining us live to talk about this. And bottom line, I want your opinion. Do you think John L. Smith is a good hire at Arkansas?
I think it was best case scenario, Sage. I really do. When you look at the situation, the adversity you faced, you were, with the timing of this in late April, not really going to have an available list of candidates, head coaching candidates to come in. John L. Smith knows the system. I'll tell you what it reminds me of. Remember Bill Parcells to the New Orleans Saints and all of that conversation? You bring the mentor in, the guy that knows people, and even better than what Parcells would have been in New Orleans is the fact that John L. has been in that building and knows the people over the last 3 years. I do think it's a win-win in a very difficult situation for the Razorbacks.
Risky at all, Brock? If you're John L. Smith, it's just a one-year contract, $850,000. There's no long-term deal here for him.
At this stage of the game, you take that risk. You're 63 years old. You get a chance to coach in the best conference in America with a team that's primed to compete for a national championship. And no disrespect to Weber State and the opportunity there, but this was a no-brainer if you're John L. Smith.
Will Arkansas, Brock, lose a step without Petrino at the helm? I mean, you heard Smith, and he said his expectations are as high, if not higher. They were good last season, 11-2. Only two teams they lost to were the two teams that played in the national championship. Your thoughts on what this season will bring?
This will really fall on Niall Davis, Tyler Wilson, the veteran guys in their locker room. As much as we talk about the head coach, and it is critical here and very important, especially in this situation, I've always believed it is that locker room. It is those seniors. It is the upperclassmen. And for them, and you've seen the reaction from them, they are thrilled by this move. It will still fall on their shoulders. And I really like the challenge for Tyler Wilson. NFL guys want to evaluate quarterbacks in a tough situation. People fancy him a franchise quarterback. Well, now he'll have to battle through some real adversity and prove that.
Yeah, he said he came back because of Bobby Petrino, so he certainly will be facing a tough challenge. And you mentioned Niall Davis. He tweeted that this is the happiest day of his life, hearing that John L. Smith is coming back to be their head coach. So the reaction in Fayetteville seems to be pretty good. That is ESPN analyst Brock Heward with reaction to the hire at the University of Arkansas. As far as what the team has left, again, the quarterback's coming back. We've got a pretty good running back as well. Tyler Wilson, a stud. Lots of NFL eyes on him. Niall Davis. Running back Dennis Johnson, he had a pretty good season in 2011. And Kobe Hamilton at receiver. Once again, pretty good 2011 season. All eyes will be on the Razorbacks and how they perform after this scandal, after these changes.
John L. Smith obviously in rare form this press conference. We got plenty on the Arkansas hire coming up, Rob, but also later on you're going to show us the guys who've got massive shoes to fill as Stanford's next quarterback.
Yeah, who's going to be Stanford's next quarterback? And also, which version of Andrew Luck does that guy have to be? Maybe not what you think.
I want your take later on what kind of a rookie season you think you'll have with the Colts as well. But we start off, of course, with the big story the last couple of days. Arkansas introducing John L. Smith, who's leading Jeff Long, the athletic director, the man who had to make the move to fire Petrino and hire John L. Smith, whom he says reached out to him after moving to Weber State from Arkansas, his alma mater, to be the head coach just a few months ago. John L. Smith at 63, excited to be back in Fayetteville. You see the record at 4 schools, most prominently Louisville, where, of course, he was linked to Petrino. They coached together for a total of 10 seasons, including the last 3 at Arkansas. Michigan State, no way to spin it. That was not a success. Just a 12-20 conference record in his years in East Lansing. The last 3 years at Arkansas, he coached the special teams, a mixed bag. They had a pretty good return game. They were not very good at preventing other teams from returning. But John L. Smith back as boss of the Hogs.
With the relationship that I have with the staff, The players that are here, the fans that are here, hopefully, I can make a difference, and we can fight through this and do what it is we have to do to get through the adversity. So I want to say that. Now, along those lines, I want to say that our expectations are the same. Okay? Nothing's going to slow down. In fact, we're going to speed up. Our expectations are that we're going to go ahead and we're going to battle, and we're going to fight for a national title. And that was that way when I walked in the door here 3 years ago, and it's going to continue to be that way. And I know this, that not only the fans, but this football team and these coaches are going to embrace that challenge and say, let's go. Let's make it a special year. Everything's in place here. You've got a good football team. We've got the best fans in the world. We've got great coaches. Let's make it a special year.
What Arkansas fans want to hear. We'll hear from John L. in a second. First, Petrino's reaction. I think Jeff Long made a great hire. There were several outstanding internal candidates, but apparently none that led Long to look internally versus externally. John L. brings a lot of head coaching experience to the table. It will help Arkansas's transition. It will unify the staff, the team, and the Razorbacks fan base, at which Coach Smith and his staff in the Arkansas football team the very best. And we're joined now on the phone by John L. Smith. Coach, thanks for taking time. I think the attraction of this opportunity for you is obvious, but what do you see as the major challenges in stepping in as Arkansas's head coach?
Well, again, you step into a program that is a top 10 program. That is, to me, a positive, but at the same point, it's a challenge. I mean, expectations are very high, and our expectations are high. The players' expectations are high. The nation, the Razorback Nation expectations are high. So I guess that's a challenge. I think overcoming the adversity that we have here is a challenge. But again, we're going to lock up. These players are going to lock it together. I know these kids. Have been around these kids for 3 years, and the nation's going to lock up, the Razorback Nation, and we're all going to get through the adversity. So I guess that's the main challenge at this point, Chris.
You've had a long and winding road as a coach, some highs, some lows.
Yep.
For you personally, at 63, what do you see is at stake for you with this opportunity to have a special season? Not have to rebuild as you have so often, but have a special season.
Right, Chris. And I go back and I take a look at that. Every program that I've gone into has been a situation where you probably have to go in and rebuild, and it's going to take a few years and all of that. And my wife mentioned this to me when we were contemplating this, and she said, this is the first time you have a good football team, and you're walking in the door, and, your ability probably right off to play for a national title is great there. So she said, that's an opportunity you have to take. You've worked your entire life for that. So again, I said it's somewhat the same.
Walking in the door at Arkansas, John Alba, walking out of the door of your alma mater at Weber State, which gave you a chance. You were only there a few short months. What is your message to them? Because there are bound to be some bitter people at Weber State.
Well, they're bound to be, They were super to me. My alma mater, the people there, Jerry Bovey, the athletic director, is an outstanding individual. And I want to thank, of course, them for understanding that this is an opportunity that that I have to take because I'm heavily invested here as well. So, again, I think he understood, and hopefully the people will understand. I know there's going to be some bitter feelings, but I guess that's the way it is in this profession and almost anywhere. You're not going to be able to please everybody, but, you look at this and you say, this is something I never would have predicted or ever contemplated, but it's happened. Let's fight through it, and they're going to have a little adversity they have to fight through, and they'll be fine.
One of the intriguing aspects, the 10-month contract. Beyond that, let's say things go well, Arkansas achieves what you think you can. Do you want to coach beyond this season? Do you expect to be given the chance to do that?
Well, I would expect that to be the case, and hopefully that is the case. We'll have to wait and see, of course, and, you're just going to take it one step at a time, one season at a time, and see what happens after this.
So now, thanks for your time. We wish you the best. Take care.
Chris, I appreciate it, buddy. You take care.
one step at a time for sure. 10-month contract, Rob. One of the many intriguing, unusual aspects of this hire.
Yeah. It's great to have him back, though. I mean, his press conferences are not dull, and that's enjoyable.
We like characters.
Exactly. And, we've said this is a good hire for Arkansas. We get it. It makes sense, the continuity. But there is fair criticism here of Arkansas, of John L. Smith and Jeff Long, when you think about not coaching a game at all after being there a short few months and then leaving his alma mater in the lurch. That's a fair criticism for the Weber State people to have there. And then for Jeff Long as well, we gave him a lot of praise when he took care of Bobby Petrino and moved him out of there after his problem. We called it principled, ethical, and all those things. But you have to remember, he did not talk to Weber State before hiring John L. Smith. He didn't get permission there. John L. Smith went to him first, but he still didn't follow up and go back to them. And I think most athletic directors would like to see that happen. So we have Weber State left in the lurch here, and some people say, Weber State, who cares? But, they've got players and coaches and families, and they care about this, and they may understand the change, but they don't like it.
When Smith left Louisville from Michigan State, many Louisville fans felt left in the lurch when the announcement coming out at halftime of a bowl game. Brock Huer joins us now. He's out in Eugene, Oregon. I'll be out there for the Ducks spring game with you, Brock, on Saturday. But your take from long distance on this Petrino departure and bringing in John L. Smith, who came off his staff to be the new head coach. And not the interim, but the head coach.
It's pretty remarkable in some ways because just down the road from Fayetteville, remember what's happened to the New Orleans Saints in a different situation, but lots of adversity. And remember, they pointed to Bill Parcells in a very similar role, to be the mentor, a guy that knew the whole coaching staff, knew the system and way to operate. And I think here for Arkansas, even better, because John L. has been here. He knows these players, has tremendous relationship. So it does have an eerie resemblance to what New Orleans was going through. And I think, listen, there's no win-win in this deal. Not in the crash and burn nature that this unfortunately is for Arkansas, but at least is a soft landing spot and a guy familiar with the people there in Fayetteville.
Brock, you're exactly right. If you bring in a guy with no tie to the program, the feeling was in Fayetteville there that they could have lost the team. And you don't want to lose a team when the team has a chance to win a lot of games and potentially a championship. Here's the timeline, taking you back to April 1st when Petrino crashed his motorcycle. He had multiple opportunities to, quote, come clean with Jeff Long about the details, the circumstances of that accident. Did not do so, and the feeling of the administration. April 5th began to come out there just as the police report was going to be made public. There was the first admission, Rod, and you're the lawyer in this. There were a lot of repercussions. I think they wanted to try to find a way to keep him. It just became untenable.
So you have to protect the university. And the university was at risk, legal exposure on a number of fronts because of this behavior, not the least of which was Petrino and the woman involved, Durrell.
And Jessica Durrell, a fairly modest cash settlement, we can say, with Arkansas. Her fiance back at work at the university. So the soap opera, to some degree, continues.
Complicated, ugly situation.
That's the timeline. And, of course, John L. Smith on the job, and the Hogs without Smith as the coach going through their spring game. We're going to get the reaction. Back to College Football Live, we'll jump into the social circle and see some of the Twitter reaction to John L. Smith's hiring at Arkansas. Important to have the support of star running back Niall Davis. And he says, I don't care what anyone says. I'm 100% behind John L. Smith. I'll play for him any day of the week because he's a good man and a coach. 14-0 or 0-14. He's a better coach at 14-0, trust me. John L. Smith back in action, says the kicker, Zach Cocker. And the wide receiver, Julian Horton, says he is back with 3 exclamation points. Let's go win this championship.
I'm not going to say the phrase coaching search in relation to Arkansas until he loses his first game.
4 months ago, whatever, John L. Smith felt the love for Weber State. I think he feels a lot more love for these players. He's been around for 3 years.
Usually these interim jobs, if you don't completely make a mess of things, they turn into permanent jobs.
How is John L. Smith going to go in there and have to make difficult decisions as a head coach?
He would probably have more personality than his predecessor that way.
You know for a fact this guy ain't the head coach next year.
We are going to go 11-1. We will beat LSU. I'm iffy about Alabama. I do believe the thing with John Smith was a good idea.
And he earned the job if they go 12-1.
This guy goes out and wins 8 games this year. It's going to be one of the most catastrophic failures in a long, long time because you did it to secure what you consider to be a highly functioning, highly successful team potentially. And that's why you're doing what you're doing.
So 8 wins is catastrophic in their world. The options obviously limited for Jeff Long, but let's get Bo Mattingly of ESPN Radio Arkansas's take on how this is playing with your listeners and your take as well. John L. Smith, a character, but they're kind of used to characters in Arkansas. That doesn't daunt the fans down there.
No, they weren't very happy, though, when they heard the name. They were underwhelmed by the announcement until they realized that it was only for 10 months. And then fans began to calm down a little bit. They're still not completely at ease with the move. They wanted to see Jeff Long get a long-term answer right now.
Weren't they concerned, though, Bo, that the Arkansas players might have been an open revolt if you bring in a big-name guy outside and clean house with the season approaching, wouldn't they?
Yes, and we all understand, I think, in the college football world that you can't go get that guy in April. He's probably not going to leave his program, even if you were willing to do that. And so Jeff Long had to get the guy that he thought could take the pressure off the coordinators, let them run their offense and defense, and have a head coach with experience who knows 8 of the 9 assistants on staff, has coached with them before, and knows all of these players that could provide a sense of continuity and sort of bridge that gap until they can do a legitimate search in December.
Very quickly, Bo, what is enough for Arkansas fans this year? 10 wins, 11 wins, 12 wins, the division title. What's going to be considered a successful season?
It's really never enough, Chris, but 10 wins would probably be the standard for Arkansas fans. Anything less, they're going to be really disappointed after the last 2 seasons.
Bo, thanks for your insight. Bo Mattingly, ESPN Radio Arkansas. Let's go back now to Brock Heward. Tyler Wilson has taken over an increased leadership mantle. Brock, he gave a big speech to the team before the spring game when he then went out and lit up the number 2 defense. What's your sense of Wilson's role and his play upcoming, where not much has changed on offense with Paul Petrino as the coordinator?
I got to tell you, I love it. I love the opportunity. We got the NFL draft just 2 days away, and you know what NFL draft evaluators look for in franchise quarterbacks? How do you handle difficult circumstances? How do you handle trials? Andrew Luck, when you throw a pick against USC with 2 minutes to go, what do? You march that team and you win in triple overtime. Here you're going to have a chance, because I think many people fancy Tyler Wilson a franchise quarterback. These evaluators will get to look at him this year in a very difficult, demanding situation. And I can't wait, because I think he's got loads of talent.
You know, Brock, I think that having Niall Davis back is a big factor for Tyler Wilson. That'll give Wilson a chance to work with a premier back out of the backfield, running attack and passing attack. And I think that will help move his game up even higher than it was last season.
Absolutely. When you can have that kind of balance in attack, and look at Tyler last year, he played really well when they were at home and things were easy. It gets a little bit tougher on the road. It's always tough in the SEC, and these circumstances certainly heated up now in Fayetteville.
Oh, the best of John L. Smith as he heads back to Arkansas to be a head coach. You recall this game in the Horseshoe? Michigan State in control. They blocked the field goal run. Ohio State, a huge play. This turned momentum. One of the best halftime interviews in history. Don't usually reap this much at that moment. John L. from 2005.
Coach, obviously, a miscalculation there, and you're upset. Tell me about it.
Very upset. We should have been in a ball game with fast field goal. The coach had sent him in. We shouldn't have sent him in. That's a dang coaching mistake. The kids are playing their tail off, and the coaches are screwing it up.
He's been responsible in recent years for the special teams in Arkansas, and he's going to continue to be, as you heard earlier. Reaction to John L. Smith on the social circle. Rick says he worked with 8 or 9 coaches on the staff. Players are happy. Hard to win if the team is against it. Landon says continuity is the key for a title contending team. Jeff Long made the correct decision. Mark says good. It'll be fun watching the Hogs lose games they should win, as Michigan State did under his tenure. They did lose more than they won, especially in the Big Ten, and there have been some Michigan State alums who've been tickled about this hire, but generally pretty positive.
Yeah, generally pretty positive, but some folks say, hey, you know, he's in charge of special teams, had a couple issues at Michigan State. Big games for Arkansas with Alabama, LSU. There'll be a heavy spotlight on John L. and his decision-making in those games.
Next, Arkansas and John L. Smith for 1 year and 1 year only. Smith spent the last 3 seasons on Bobby Petrino's staff with special teams, but the last 4 months at Weber State, his alma mater, where he was head coach. And now that program left with a black hole. Buy or sell Smith to Arkansas, Bomani?
I'm buying it all day long. Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes people just have to be mad. And when you get a $700,000 raise and a chance to get back to the big time where he was before as a coach, sometimes people just got to be mad.
Clear, I gotta buy it as well. This is a clear case of don't hate the player, hate the game. I want to hate John L. Smith for this. I want to be mad at him for leaving his alma mater high and dry. But I can't blame him for taking a unique opportunity. Nobody saw these circumstances presenting themselves. Going back to Arkansas, not just a conference title contender, but a national title contender, a place where he was and getting a raise on top of it. I can't be upset with that.
You know what a unique opportunity is, Michael? Is to show some decency, some integrity, some commitment. I'm totally selling this. The fact that this guy, he left after the first spring practice. He barely made it through the first spring football season. That's absurd. The fact that he would leave after this guy. You know what? And why would Arkansas want this guy? They went from one guy, Petrino, to this guy. Two bad, to me, bad character guys.
Very well spoken by Bill Plaschke. Unfortunately, he's wrong. I got to buy it, too. I wanted to sell it just like the other guys did. You're 63 years old. You got this opportunity to go coach Arkansas and see where that leads. Beyond that, you have to take that job. Sorry.
Absolutely not.
From Arkansas' standpoint now, continuity with Smith. Is this team still a team that can contend for the SEC and then for a national title? Jones, Smith?
I hope not. I hope not.
Hater! 19 points.
Arkansas introduced its new football coach today. John L. Smith agreed to coach the Razorbacks just 4.5 months after he signed on to coach his alma mater, Weber State. Smith leaves behind 18 new recruits and a staff he had just hired. Tony, how badly is Smith hosing his alma mater?
The short answer is badly, but I'm going to go a different way on this. John L. Smith was at Arkansas last year. He went to Weber State. It is his alma mater. He did recruit a whole bunch of people. I mean, I understand all that. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Who could have foreseen Bobby Petrino doing this? He was just at Arkansas. He gets a chance to go from a 1AA school to a top 10 D1 school. It fell from the sky. I think he has to take it. I think Weber State has to understand.
I think he has to stay. It's about be a man, be accountable. All these coaches, particularly college football coaches, they talk endlessly and piously about 18-year-old kids and their responsibility. And so many times they demonstrate the responsibility of my 4-year-old son. I'm sick of them as a fraternity.
I won't disagree with that, except to say that he didn't foresee this coming. It's a great opportunity. He was just at Arkansas.
What is character?
Well,
what is it?
Character is not necessarily defined by staying where you are.
Your alma mater.
Something like your alma mater that you went to that's 1AA. He looks like a sleazebag. I'm not arguing that. He's also getting the opportunity to maybe coach a national champion.
You know what? You wrapped it up nicely with that last sentence. Thank you.
We want to get you back out right now, Hoover, Alabama, as Arkansas head coach John L. Smith, entering his first season as head coach of the Razorbacks, is speaking.
It's one of those deals that that was hard having to leave. But again, you weigh it out. I mean, doors open in life, doors close in life, and all of a sudden a door, an opportunity opened. I've never been one to stand on the outside and wait for it to close, so you better jump through it before it does close. So that's kind of been my philosophy in life, and I think that's kind of what's taken place over the last few months. And again, I feel like I'm a blessed individual, and I'm honored to be at the university.
Okay, we'll go over here on the left side in the front row.
John L. George Lapidus, Memphis. Would you like to be the Arkansas coach for more than 1 year?
Well, certainly. Do I look stupid? I know I probably don't answer that. Don't answer that question. Why
or to put it another way, there is speculation or talk that you would need to go 14-0 to be the Arkansas coach after this season. Have you been told anything?
That is to be determined, okay, by our athletic director, our administration, and what that number is. If you want to put a number on it, I don't know what that is, and I don't know that he knows at this point. But, hopefully we're going to knock on wood and make things happen to where we give him no choice but to say, yeah, you're going to be back here next year.
Okay, we'll go down front here with Ron.
Ron Higgins, Commercial Appeal, Memphis. John, not trying to be funny here, but you've always seemed to be a I have nothing to lose type of guy.
Right.
And why is that in your personality, your DNA. I mean, just running with the Bulls or just anything you do, all the crazy stuff you do. You know, a lot of people wouldn't take this job just a year. They would say, no way.
Right.
Well, what is it in your DNA that's like, you just like, I got nothing. I'll just go with it.
I don't know. I guess there's something in there that says, life's an adventure, and let's make sure that we take advantage of that adventure and don't miss anything. I keep looking back in my history, and my granddad came to this country when he was like a kid at 12 years old. His folks put him on a boat and said, hey, go to America. Now, what kind of an adventure is that? That's a life adventure, too. So maybe it comes from that. I don't know. But I've never been one to turn away from an open door or from a adventure to go do something. And I think life is like that. And I think that's one thing as a coach you'd like to portray and get your kids to understand is that you're only here a short period of time. Doggone it. Take advantage. Don't ever look back that I didn't play as hard as I can play in this game, that I missed something that I should have not missed. So don't be ever a person in life, and I like the kids to go out thinking, gosh, what if? Don't be a gosh, what if guy. Don't be what if I'd worked a little harder? What if I'd done this a little better? So that's one thing I try to portray to the kids is, don't be that guy. Take advantage of everything that you're given in this life, and let's full bore ahead.
Okay, we'll stay over here on the left side, about 5 rows back.
Pete Scantlebury, PowerMizzou.com. Coach, you're not playing Missouri this year, but going forward, that rivalry will kick in.
Right.
How do you see that rivalry developing, and can it be pretty heated from the get-go because of the proximity?
Again, as I look at it, from my standpoint, it's a natural geographical rivalry for us, okay? And now, if we continue with the having to play a rival on the other side of the league as a format for scheduling, okay, to me it's an automatic. It's an automatic fit for us just because of the locale, okay? Now we get to develop that rivalry. For us, being an automatic rival on the other side, South Carolina, I don't know if that makes total sense just from a geographic standpoint, number one. So I think Missouri makes more sense, and I see that as developing into a big rivalry for us, and hopefully for Missouri.
Okay, we'll stay on the left side. Blair over here in the middle.
Blair Kirchhoff with the Kansas City Star. John, how do you handle recruiting in your situation?
Again, it goes back to this. We're a big believer that we have to do everything that we can do to get the players in the state of Arkansas to stay in Arkansas. So we've made a big push to try and make sure that happens, okay? And then those players have to lead us from there. So in saying that, okay, and this is what I really believe is that there's no other coach can guarantee you that he's going to be there next year as well. Okay, because if they want you out the door, you're going to be out the door regardless of who you are. All right, so that being number one. And then the other thing comes back to what we're trying to sell and that we are selling at the University of Arkansas is that you're not committing to an individual. If you're committing to an individual, then you're doing it for the wrong reason. You better be committing to a school. You better be committing to a program. You better be committing to what that program represents and wants to get done. So that's the way you try to sell it, is that if you want to go commit to an individual, go commit to some individual. But that's not what you're doing here. So that's the way we work it. And I believe that regardless.
Okay, we'll go over here to the right, right in the middle, about midway back.
Coach, from a distance, what was your reaction when you first heard about the Petrino story? And the second part of it is there anything in your career at all that you can relate this situation to in terms of stepping into?
Answering the last one first, no, there isn't. This is just one of those things that, you wouldn't never have dreamt might happen. And anyway, it's taken place, and that's the way it is. But what was the first part of that question again? Trying, yeah, it was daily, and I would go to work daily, of course, And my wife would give me more of the updates on what was taking place as I would come home in the evening. So she would update me on the situation. So I didn't, I tried to follow it as closely as I could, but, to be honest with you, it wasn't something that, she would just give me an update every evening and try to keep me abreast of what was going on. And so that's kind of how I followed it, and that's kind of how I viewed it from the outside. Surprised, yes. Shocked, and again, when it did take place, again, that was one of those things, because again, that's a part of your family. Those are people that have been with you. I mean, you've helped raise the kids. I mean, all of those things. So it's one of those things that you say, you just pray for them and hope that the very best can take place. A mistake has happened, and hopefully it can be something that can be remedied.
Okay, we'll go center section here on the aisle. Trey.
Hey, Coach. Trey Biddy with hogsports.com. Can you speak a little bit about Brandon Mitchell and what role he might play? We know he's been working some at wide receiver, and also just based on the reports you've gotten, any newcomers that you could expect to play a role this season?
Well, the first newcomers that you would expect to play a role, of course, would be any of your junior college players. The latest one coming in, Demetrius Wilson, we expect something out of him without a doubt. And he's going to have to help us because of, the depth and everything as far as our wideout situation goes. Now, we're not going to be afraid to see some young guys in there as well. They're going to have to help. DeArthur Cowan, possibly, a Nate Holmes, possibly, some of those guys. So, yeah, there's a lot of those new guys that we're going to have to count on, but particularly you're going to have to count on the junior college players to step in immediately. Now, Brandon, yeah, we're trying to get, and as coaches, what you try to do is get your best players on the field. Get your players out on the field in a position that they can contribute, and contribute more than maybe they are. So you're exactly right. We're working Brandon as a wide receiver. He's done a great job. As far as mentally, he knows that. He knows where to line up because he's, a quarterback. He knows where everybody goes, what they do. It's a matter of we're going to have to work hard technically as far as running routes, doing all of those things, but we expect to get a lot more out of him. Now, does that mean he's not going to play quarterback? It does not mean that. He'll do some double duty. Now, there may be some other guys doing some double duty as well. Kiero Small, for instance, and I think I might have brought this up before. Kiero, he's our fullback. Now, do you just be satisfied with him playing, let's say, 15, 20% of the game? When we do use the fullback, we're going to take a look at him at playing some linebacker, because that's a spot that we're a little bit depth-wise not what we would like to be. So Kiero's a guy that we need to get some double duty out of. And again, he's a guy that can handle it as well. So to answer your questions, I think that's our obligation as coaches to try and get more playing time and more of your good players on the field at, as much as you can.
Coach, we'll go over on the left along the wall.
Coach, Johnny Thornton from Coleman Sports Page. How do you change the mindset of your football team so they can be competitive with Alabama and LSU, since the Razorbacks lost to both top contenders in the Western Division last year by 24-point margins?
Yeah. Well, again, I think that comes back to what takes place in the spring, what takes place in the summer, what takes place, of course, before you line up with those guys. So our mental capacity and our mental ability to, number one, believe we can compete and beat those guys, which I think our kids do. And the other thing is to work harder. Work harder in the weight room, work harder in the summertime, work harder to be what they are, because they did get after us last year. So I think from a standpoint of our kids, they're accepting the challenge that they have to be tougher mentally to begin with, in believing you can beat those guys, and then physically through working out in the weight room and going to the field and having it be a physical fall to begin with. So I think that will take care of itself. And again, you have to rely on those leaders to make sure they preach that constantly.
Other questions, raise your hand. We'll get a microphone to you. Got one, got several up here in the front. Brandon, if we could get up here. Second row with Tom. Here we go.
Hey, Coach. Tom Murphy, Arkansas Democrat Gazette.
Who?
The LSU game has been the season finale for Arkansas for a while. There's the Golden Boot Trophy and all goes with it. But there's talk that that game might change in the schedule, and Missouri might be a possibility to be the season ender. Any thoughts on those lines?
Well, I don't know what's going to take place in the future as far as that schedule goes. Missouri's going to be in there somewhere, and if that were to come down to the last game of the year, I guess that would help make that a bigger rivalry immediately, just because, it seems like everybody saves that rivalry game for the last game. So I think that's a possibility, but I have no knowledge of that taking place. As far as the LSU game coming to Fayetteville, I think that's was out of necessity to a degree. In traveling 3 weeks in a row, regardless if it's a home game or not, it's better to sit at home and make them travel the extra distance. So I think that has a lot to do with bringing that LSU game there. And we like having them at home. I mean, we love Little Rock. Our players, our coaches, our fans love Little Rock, but, we'd just soon play LSU at home, I guess.
All right, we'll go in the front here to George again on the front row to the left.
George Lapidus again, John L. Was contact...
They still put up with you in Memphis?
Okay, yeah, they do.
Go ahead.
Was contact between you and Arkansas initiated before Petrino was officially dismissed or after? How was it initiated? And also, have you had any conversation or conversations with him about the football team?
Could we move on to the next question, at least one with intelligence? No, you didn't get that, did you? All right. How did it? No, to my knowledge, we did not have any interaction till after Bobby was gone. So that had all taken place and prior to any of that. The actual, who reached out to who and all of that stuff, it started with, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, is my talking with the coaches and vice versa. And that's where it came from.
All right, we'll go around the...
And then I reached out. Oh, I have. Yes, we talked last week, and it was a good conversation, which is the first time that we've talked. And I think it was a way of Bobby just saying, okay, that, let's kind of just let you take care of everything, and you don't need to answer any questions about you and I having visited. So now that we have, yes, we talked, and it was basically about, our football team at Arkansas, of which he's always concerned about that. And then, of course, what he's going to do from here on out with his life and things he'd like to get done. So, it was more of us just getting back and catching up.
All right, we'll go around and stay on the left side and the left wall. Ivan?
Ivan Mazel of ESPN.com, John L. How are you a different coach than the last time you were coaching at this level as a head coach, be that Michigan State or Louisville, whatever you define this level?
Right. Well, I think we continue to grow, and I'm a big believer in that. Is you better continue to grow all the time. So I think I've grown as a coach. Again, as I look back at Michigan State, that was a situation that, as I look, I try not to take anything for granted. Okay, that was a situation where You know, you're going through, not to make any excuses, I'm fighting through a couple battles. My wife is fighting cancer. We're going through some things. The president that hired me leaves. I mean, don't take anything for granted. Don't take for granted that if you have a 6-year contract, you think it's going to be 6. No, don't take anything for granted. And that's just, so I've tried to take that out of there. Whatever it is you do in life, don't take it for granted. And that's why the 10-month contract doesn't really bother me. So.
All right, we'll stay here in the center section over here, and right in the middle.
Jake Martin, Concordia Sentinel. Coach, I talked to Tyler Wilson at the Manning Passing Academy, and he was just turning everything into a positive. Can you talk about how valuable it is to have him as a leader on your team?
Oh, you're going to get to talk to him, but again, Tyler's awesome. You know, and the way that he has, to me, blossomed in just my going away for the short period of time, the 4 months that I'm gone, and then come back and to have Tyler sit down and the conversations that we go through. He's exuding confidence now. And I'm sure you probably felt that. I mean, there's a guy that all of a sudden is just, he's starting to, you know, just blossom and exude confidence. And I think he's very, very confident and at home in what it is we're doing on the offensive side of the ball. And I think he loves, I know he does. I know he loves Coach Paul Petrino and you know, what they're doing on the field, what they're doing, watching the video, just his whole knowledge of the game of football. So having a guy like that's tremendous, without a doubt. I mean, he's such a positive guy, as are all of our guys, really, to a degree. You know, you're going to meet some other guys here in Tenarius and in Niall Davis that are positive, upbeat, energetic, hardworking, great individuals. And again, that's, you look at these guys and you say, okay, I'm going to go back and be with these guys? Yeah. That's not that hard a decision to make.
Okay, we'll go down, Ron, we'll go down here front to Ron. Did you have a question? Okay, covered that. Other questions? Raise your hand. We'll get a microphone to you. Questions for Coach Smith? All right, thank you very much, Coach Smith.
Am I done?
You are finished. And here, Arkansas.
Thank you all.
Okay, so we now are going to do Arkansas's schedule predictor. Let's see how we have the Razorbacks doing. Again, they are at home against LSU. They're at home against Alabama. Let's, guys, first off, let's chalk off some W's we don't think we need to worry about here. Go right ahead.
Well, Jacksonville State beat Ole Miss.
Yeah.
They've got SEC victories. Yeah. But I think Arkansas is going to knock them off.
Okay.
Louisiana Monroe, Arkansas is going to be too strong.
Rutgers going into Fayetteville. Are we ready?
I'm holding off on that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I guess I'll be the guy to do it. I mean, I'll do Kentucky. You know, since you've been
Why do you
doing it.
hate Kentucky?
Your Twitter's going to blow up.
My Twitter already got hit. I already got hit on Twitter there.
Can I give him Tulsa?
Kentucky.
I'll give him Ole Miss.
No, don't give him Tulsa.
Can I give him Ole Miss?
Yeah.
I think I'm going to give him Ole Miss.
You can give him Ole Miss.
You can fight about it
Don't
later.
give him Tulsa.
All right, South Carolina, Mississippi State. Okay, fair enough. So that's 4 gimmies for Arkansas, and now we go to Alabama. They played well the majority of the game deep into the second half, or into the second half last season. How do we like this one? Arkansas against Alabama.
You know, this is a tough one. They did play Alabama tough. Alabama wore them down.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the strength of this Alabama defense is in the defensive tackles. You mentioned that before, Christian. They rotate 5 to 6 guys through there. They will be fresh and fiery in the middle of that line. The thing is, though, Alabama is going to be improved, in my opinion, in the passing game on the perimeter with more weapons, young talent.
Yeah.
But if those young receivers of Alabama can step up, they'll be able to bypass the interior of that Arkansas defense. I think Alabama still will eke out a tough win on this one.
Yeah, I think I'm going to disagree with you on this one.
Are you?
Yeah, I am. I'm jumping right in.
You are a bold man, Christian Fourier.
Hate this.
Yeah, they might be improved, but I've seen something with Tyler Wilson, and it comes around every now and then. A guy and his team, they have to overcome this adversity, the stigma that has been attached to them and what they've been through. This is going to be a huge win for them, okay? This is going to be one of those Tyler Wilson games, making that big throw on third down, making that completion. Remember how badly he got beat up. Don't think that he doesn't remember it. Remember all the defensive fronts that was thrown out at him. He's watching film now. He's figuring out where the blitz is coming from, where his hot reads are. He's going to be able to be one step ahead of Nick Saban in this game.
Okay. I like what you're saying.
Tyler Wilson will be one step ahead of Nick Saban.
Yes.
I've got
Write that
Nick
down.
Saban is
Write that
not
down.
playing defense.
I've got to break it. I've got to break a tie here. Here's what I'm going to go with. Those three wide receivers for Arkansas are gone. It's still early in the season, and look at the first two teams they've played. What do we learn from them against Jacksonville State and Louisiana Monroe? Then they step into Alabama, who will have already played Michigan. I like Alabama going into a game this early.
So affected.
You don't buy it?
No.
You're standing next to him. You can
No, I can't do it. He's driving the ship. He might lead me to a rock.
All right, so now we get Rutgers going to Fayetteville.
You know, Rutgers defense, don't sleep on those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, they play tough, aggressive, physical defense, and people don't give them much credit because they play in the Big East. Those guys are a tough out. Arkansas.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I mean, listen, Greg Schiano isn't there anymore, but that defensive front, they have one of the best linebackers in the nation. But I'm still going to give them the win also, so I don't have to change anything.
All right, so they're 3-1 going into Texas A&M, 5-1 if we look later down the road. At A&M, though, who they beat with a huge second half last year.
Christian Fourier?
You know what? Again, you keep changing my picks here, so I had him going.
Well, make better
I had him going a different degree. No, make a better decision. All right, I'm going to have him beat Texas A&M again. I'm jumping on the Tyler Wilson bandwagon, and this defensive. Although they got a lot of sacks last year, they couldn't get any turnovers. They couldn't finish games. Texas A&M, good offense. They're going to put some points on the board. This might be one of those shootouts like it was last year, but Texas A&M pulls it out again.
No, Arkansas pulls it out.
Arkansas.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Christian, I agree with you here, and I think Tyler Wilson will be a big reason why. Texas A&M is installing a new offense. They won't have all the nuances down the way Tyler Wilson and the Arkansas offense will. Even though head coach Bobby Petrino was gone, Paul Petrino, Bobby's brother, who's been with him for much of his career as a head coach, understands this offense very well. It's the same exact thing. And I think the experience of Tyler Wilson versus a brand new, fresh, wet behind the ears, not fully grown up, and might not even shave yet quarterback for Texas A&M, I think that difference will be too much for Texas A&M, and I like Arkansas.
So you go Arkansas there.
Yeah.
At Auburn, I think this could be really, really good.
I think it's going to be a great game, but again, I'm putting there's so much emphasis needs to be put on experienced quarterback play. Yeah. A quarterback who's in his fifth year is really his second year of starting, but played even his third year. You cannot find that anywhere in Auburn. New coordinators on both sides of the ball. They don't know who they're going to be yet. They're still next year. We're going to be talking Auburn big time, but for right now. Arkansas is going to win this game.
I agree. I think we'll see a preview of Auburn of some future superstars, but I don't think they're ready yet.
We've already given them Kentucky. We've given them Ole Miss. They're sitting at 7-1, and in comes Tulsa on a high-powered offense, and Cody Green, a Nebraska transfer at quarterback. My friend Bill Blankenship coaching the Golden Hurricane. Who do we like? This is a tough call.
I actually drove from my home in Nashville to Tulsa, Oklahoma to talk to Bill Blankenship and his staff.
Did you?
Yeah, they've got an upgraded stadium. It's beautiful. The philosophy that they're instilling there is fantastic. I think they've got one of the most innovative offenses in the country. Yeah. I just think they don't have enough playmakers. Yeah. And I think Tulsa, don't sleep on them. If Arkansas doesn't play well, if they think that it's going to be a walkover, then Tulsa could give them grief. But I think Arkansas has too much, and I'll go with Arkansas for the win.
All right, you agree?
Yeah.
Representing, by the way, like a billion state titles at my alma mater, Union High School, Bill Blankenship.
A billion?
Coach, yes. Close
goes back like to Moses.
Jinx has a couple. At South Carolina now for Arkansas. Yesterday, you went with South Carolina here. Look, it's July. You're allowed to change your mind. Are you ready to do it?
Maybe in August. No, I still, between yesterday and today, I still like South Carolina. At South Carolina. Two of the best pass rushers coming off the edges in the SEC. Jadeveon Clowney, one of them at defensive end. Yeah. I think for South Carolina playing at home where it's loud, the offensive line could be laid off the ball. I think Tyler Wilson once again will have his teeth rattled, and that'll be the difference.
Right. And also Marcus Lattimore going to be there still. Taking up a bunch of the clock. And this is kind of be like how teams used to play against Peyton Manning. If you want to beat him, just don't let him come onto the field. And that's going to be the difference also. So I have South Carolina actually.
So that's a loss.
That's a loss.
So there you go. Now 8-2 at Mississippi State.
I have them winning this game also, although I do like where Mississippi State is going with it. Arkansas is going to be able to, listen, good secondary, though, too. A great challenge for Tyler Wilson. So when you get to the shit, they go, oh, geez. Listen, they can compete. They can slow him down. They can match up with some of their best wide receivers. They can stick another guy on Colby Hamilton, but can they stop Nile Davis? I don't think so, so I have them winning this one also.
All right.
Yeah, I think they can slow one or the other. But when you've got Nile Davis and then Kobe Hamilton too, not enough playmakers on that defense. But I love the way Mississippi State plays. They're tough.
Yeah.
They're now a really tough out in this conference.
They got a great attitude too on defense.
And then we get back here. LSU at Fayetteville, last regular season game. Potentially for a Western Division championship. Potentially, we'll see what happens to that Alabama game.
Now you've got Arkansas beating Alabama.
So you've got
it was a tiebreaker that put that L there. So right now you have got them undefeated in the division, and winning this game will send them to the conference championship game.
Exactly. I had them still losing 2 games. They usually lose to Alabama and LSU, but I have them beating Alabama, losing to South Carolina.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
So you got LSU here?
And then I have them losing to LSU.
But why? You've got the experienced senior quarterback against the first-year starter.
There's something to say about unfinished business, and I think they have it. And they do have, listen, when it comes from would I rather have a great quarterback who can sling it around all over the place? I love that. But when it comes to clock management and controlling the field, LSU has the ability to do that. Again, going back to that mentality is just keep that good quarterback off the field. And special teams, there's a lot of different ways that they can win, changing field position, making them go longer. And again, unfinished business.
You mentioned experienced quarterback. Tom Brady could have issues with LSU's defense. I mean, it's not about the quarterback in this.
Tom Brady might have issues with some of those LSU players in future years in the NFL. You can see some of those guys.
So where do you have
Patriot quarterback? Well, no, I have this. I have an LSU win here as well. Yeah, I do. The thing is, offensively, Arkansas has got the goods. The problem is the other side of the matchup that you mentioned. You've got the Arkansas defense against the LSU offense. And again, if Mettenberger is playing at a high level, LSU will be able to attack the field at a very high level everywhere on the field. And I don't think Arkansas has enough playmakers to match up everywhere.
So there you go. 9-3 for the Razorbacks. Losers of 2 of their last 3 and finishing 1 game better in the overall standings than Mississippi State. It's a big opportunity to get some insight on the Arkansas Razorbacks as we welcome in the 2 biggest names of this football program. You're starting quarterback Tyler Wilson, starting running back Nile Davis. Guys, it's great to have you with us. We appreciate the time. We heard your head coach, John L. Smith, earlier. Excitable, funny, loose. What did you guys think of the coach in front of all the media this afternoon?
Go ahead now.
Well, it was great. You know, it was great here at the SEC Media Day. I'm excited to play for John L. I think it's going to be a great season. I'm excited to play with Tyler. We just have high expectations, you know, and we're ready to go.
Tyler, when he came back to Arkansas, I was going to say, he mentioned you and Nile specifically as far as the family vibe that he felt there and reasons that it was an easy no-brainer for him to come back. What have the first couple of months been like with him back?
Right. Well, I mean, he was with us for 3 previous seasons, so obviously we had a pretty good relationship with him. I'd say many of our other players feel the same exact way. You know, he has a little bit different personality than the previous coach, but definitely easy to play for, and a guy I think a number of us guys will look forward to having as our head coach.
Tyler, he's a guy who we all were looking forward to watching him at Media Day. We enjoy the sound bites. We love the excitement that he has. Is he different in a locker room setting? What is that John L. Smith like?
Well, I think he's a guy that's able to, he's able to get on somebody. For sure in a locker room setting, but he'll give you a wink at the end of it, lets you know that you're still on his side. And I think that personality is able to get across to a lot of guys, and a lot of guys respond to it.
Nile, you're back from injury. First of all, how difficult was it missing so much time last season, and how do you feel right now going into the fall?
Well, last season was tough. It was tough to sit on the sideline, but my team did very good, without me. I'm looking forward to, join them again this year and try to, even improve on last year. I'm just excited, man. I'm ready to play. I'm 100%. You know, it's been a long road to getting back, but I'm back and healthy and ready to play.
Tyler, Jarius Wright, Joe Adams, in fact, 3 wide receivers gone off to the next level to the NFL. So what's the difficulty, or how would you gauge the challenge of replacing the production that you lose with the 3 wide receivers?
I mean, it's tough, no doubt. Those 3 guys are all-world guys. Obviously, they're all playing in the NFL. But we've got guys I think that can fill the void. I mean, Colby Hamilton had an unbelievable spring, and you know, I think he has the ability. Sorry, Greg, Jarius, and Joe, but I think he has the ability to be better than all 3 of them. And you know, we've also got Chris Gregg. It's a tight end that I think we can split out and do a number of things with him at wide receiver. And we've got 2 or 3 other guys that have kind of been in the shadow of those 3 guys that you mentioned that are finally ready to get their chance to shine. And I'm excited for them.
Yeah, Greg Childs also out. I didn't mean to not mention him in that mix as well. But let's look at you, Niall. I mean, you come in, and not only are you going to get to play again, but there's a change at the head coaching position, and in comes Paul Petrino to run the offense. How will the offense look different from what we've grown accustomed to seeing?
I think it'll be a little different, but not a whole lot. You know, I think they have similar tendencies, similar, you know, coaching styles. Not a whole lot of change. We got a lot of the same plays, which I think is good. You know, I'm just looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the season.
You guys, I'm going to start a sentence, and I'll have both of you finish it. Tyler, you go first. For Arkansas to be able to beat LSU and Alabama and get past those 2 in our division, blank has to happen.
We got to win. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. But you know, we've got both those guys at our place. You know, we got to run the football well. We got to limit our mistakes, and we got them in our place, like I mentioned. I mean, it's easier when you got 80,000 people cheering for you rather against you when you're trying to make those audible calls and stuff the line of scrimmage like our offense is geared to do.
And for me, you know, I think we're a few plays away from getting those wins. You know what I mean? If you look at the last few years, a few plays go in a different direction. Maybe we do win those games. So I just think we're a few plays away. We're knocking on the door. But I think this team that we have this year is definitely capable of doing it.
Niall, I keep hearing of this kind of brewing rivalry perhaps between 2 top tailbacks in the SEC. That would be you and South Carolina's Marcus Lattimore. I'm not sure. There seems to be some confusion perhaps on who the best running back in the league or the country might be. How would you answer the question? Who is the best?
I would say myself, of course, you know what I mean? But I'm sure Marcus Lattimore feels the same way. I know Marcus Lattimore. I'm hoping that he's recovering really well. Wish him the best of luck this year. But the good thing about, you know, college football is we get a chance to go out there and prove, you know, ourselves. So I'm looking forward to a good year. You know, I hope we both come back from our injuries because I know what he's going through. He knows what I'm going through, and just a mutual respect.
Here's your starting 5. Alabama actually receives the most first-place votes with 20. How about November 3rd? LSU, Alabama in Baton Rouge, USC, Oregon in Los Angeles, and the Breeders' Cup is that day. 5 SEC teams among the top 10. Kirk Herbstreit, giddy up.
5 of the top 10 teams are from the SEC. So that didn't necessarily shock me or surprise me, but that's one of the things that really stood out. You know, the SEC fans and their fan base and a lot of their players love to look at themselves as the premier conference in the country, and to start, at least as far as this poll is concerned, with the coaches, with 5 teams up in the top 10, I think that really illustrates how much, at least the coaches, look at the SEC as being the premier conference in the country.
Arkansas quarterback Tyler Wilson. Yes, everybody is talking about LSU and Alabama, but could we challenge those 2 for the top spot in the SEC West? After a tumultuous offseason with the firing of Bobby Petrino, John L. Smith steps in to lead one of the most athletic teams in the conference. QB Tyler Wilson returns for his senior season, and the Razorbacks head into the season ranked 10th in the coaches' poll. So, Christian, can Arkansas challenge for the top spot in the ever-so-hard SEC West?
Yeah, they can challenge, definitely.
Sure.
A lot of people wrote them off when they lost their coach, but if you see what's coming out of that locker room, Tyler Wilson has just owned this leadership role.
Yeah.
And I think this whole team has got a chip on their shoulder.
Definitely.
They returned Niall Davis. They still have Kobe Hamilton, who I think is going to have a great year. They have one of the best tight ends in the nation. Offensively, they're going to be able to score with anybody.
Yeah.
Defensively, there lies the challenge. Can they hold up enough? But if this comes down to a scoring battle, they are going to be a historic year for Tyler Wilson.
And they host Alabama and LSU.
Yeah.
So they'll have them at home.
There's their opportunity.
There's their opportunity to make some noise. Sports Nation, we asked you guys, will Arkansas challenge for the top spot in the SEC West? And
they can feel it.
The three-man race. It's a three-man race. All right, the QB that will crush.
I'm a huge fan of Tyler Wilson. I think this year, more than ever, he's going to be playing with a chip on his shoulder. Think about what he did in the spring. On 3 games, he completed 80 of 104 passes for over 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns. I know it's spring, but he completed 20 straight at one time. This guy is dialed in, and he's playing with a chip on his shoulder, and he's becoming more of a leader.
Yeah, that team is stacked. All right, the signal caller that will struggle this year.
I might surprise you right here. Don't be surprised. Aaron Murray. My thing with Aaron Murray, I think he's a good quarterback, but when it comes to big-time games and when we really need it, when Georgia needs us the most, he kind of disappears. He's 2-8 against top 25 teams. You go back to last year against Boise State and South Carolina and LSU. Those are the games that they needed to win. He couldn't come up with big enough plays.
All right, what about the running back ready to roll?
Niall Davis is welcome back, son. We missed you last year. This guy is a beast. 600-pound bench, 600-pound squat, 500-pound bench. He's so strong, and people forget how fast and how nimble he is. Listen, Trent Richardson was one of those strong backs from last year. You saw what he did. He's going to be just as good.
He called himself the best running back in the SEC. We'll see. What about the receiver on the rise?
I'm Arkansas heavy right now. Kobe Hamilton, receiver from Arkansas, lived in the shadow of Jarius Wright and Joe Adams, 2 NFL prospects. But this guy only caught 34 passes, but in the spring, he really connected well with Tyler Wilson, the quarterback for Arkansas. Tyler Wilson has a lot of faith, a lot of trust in Kobe Hamilton, and he has what those other guys, Jarius Wright and Joe Adams, don't have. Elite size and speed. Big impact player.
You're really feeling Arkansas, aren't you?
The offense I am.
Yeah, they're stacked. All right, that's good news for them. All right, go.
More pressure to win. Is it John L. Smith or Will Muschamp? Go Cassidy.
All right, John L. Smith took over Arkansas after the Bobby Petrino mess. He got a lot of talent on the field, but luckily he gets both Alabama and LSU at home this year. A lot of pressure for John L. Smith because he has the talent, that's for sure.
All right. What about Will Muschamp and the Florida Gators? And Florida went 3-5 in conference play last year. That's their worst conference record in the past 10 years. It's getting hot in Florida, Cassidy. What do you think?
Yeah, no, Florida fans aren't patient, and they're going to be more impatient, especially if Urban Meyer is successful at Ohio State. But I got to go with John L. Smith because they're not only going to be contenders in the SEC West, but if they can beat either LSU or Alabama or, both of them, they're going to be in the national title discussion. And that's big, and this is this year or bust because they're going to lose Niall Davis. They're going to lose Tyler Wilson.
This guy has
He's
nothing
on a one-year deal, too.
He has nothing to worry about. No pressure. You said it, 1-year deal.
Yeah.
This guy right here already messed up with hiring Charlie Weiss. That didn't work out at all. Had to bring in a new offensive coordinator. This is Florida. They're used to winning. They want it now. 7 wins is not going to be enough for the nation. Therefore, I'm taking Will Muschamp. He has more pressure.
Look, they both have pressure, quite frankly. Let's
Not
hear
this guy. This
what
guy's
Sports
chilling.
Nation has to say. Ooh, 72. Dang. That's a lot. All right.
It's been 4 months since Arkansas Athletics Director Jeff Long fired his football coach, Bobby Petrino, putting his motorcycle in the ditch, his career in the tank. Actually, it was really the least of it. It was lying about the passenger on the back of the bike. The passenger he first said wasn't there. The passenger that was a 25-year-old woman who was not his wife. The passenger he had hired for a plum job within the football program. In an exclusive interview with our Joe Shad, Petrino, back in his home state of Montana, sat down for the first time to talk about the dismissal and the surrounding circumstances.
I've went over it a number of times in my mind. How did I end up off the road? And, you know, I'm not exactly sure how that happened. I don't know how exactly I ended up in the ditch.
What do you remember thinking as this was happening?
You know, I think that the whole thing came down to the fact that I had an affair and I cheated on my wife, and I knew that there were consequences that were going to happen, and you know, it's hard to say what everything I was thinking, but I did know that I had this faith in me that I had to tell my wife, I had to tell my family, I had to tell my boss what happened.
Why did you recommend that a woman that you were having a relationship with be hired into the football office?
You know, there's no justification, there's no excuse for having her in the interview pool, hiring her, having her on the back of the motorcycle. You know, when I look back on it, there is no good answer. You know, I take responsibility for it, and I really am sorry. Played it over in my head a million times. You know, how could I do this? How could this happen? And not just the hiring or that day, but my actions and my behavior for months was just wrong.
How would you describe the singular, most difficult moment for you through all of this?
Sitting down and telling Becky, and, you know, looking at the look in her eyes of how I possibly could do something like this to hurt her. It's just something I guess anybody that's ever hurt their loved ones or lost their dream job can relate to how that is.
What would you tell a college or university athletic director or president or an NFL head coach or a team owner who said, you know, I believe you're a good coach, but, you know, why should I trust you?
Well, I just hope and pray that I get the chance to sit down in front of a person that's making the decision like that and be able to explain the mistakes I've made, how I've become a better person, a better father, a better husband. Like I said, I know I'm going to be a better coach because I'm going to spend more time coaching the person, not just the player.
How would you describe your emotional state right now?
Well, it's a little bit twofold being here in Montana. You know, it's great to come back home and, you know, be back where everything started. There's a lot of great memories here, and my father and my mother have been a tremendous influence on my life and so supportive in everything that I've done from my early days till my coaching days. But it's also hard too. You know, it's hard to come home and feel these emotions and how I hurt them.
What did you tell them?
Just I don't understand how I could do it.
How do you think the person that sits before me right now compares to the person 4 or 5 months ago?
Have a better understanding of what life really is about. You keep your priorities straight. Put your energy into the people that love you, the people that count on you. I'm working hard to save my marriage. You know, I'm working one day at a time. I want to stay married. That's mainly my main priorities, is to making things right with my family.
Obviously, tough subject matter for him to speak about. Under Petrino, the Arkansas program rose to heights that Razorback fans hadn't seen in over 30 years. You know, they got their only BCS berth under him last year. Arkansas's only 2 losses came on the road to the 2 teams who would go on to play for the national title. They earned their first AP Top 5 finish since 1977. As we welcome in Robert Smith. Robert, obviously this has a lot to do with image repair, seemed contrite. What was your read here?
Well, there's no question about it.
I think a lot of it is image repair, because really the people that he needs to apologize to the most, his family. It's contrition. Contrition is action, though. It's not just words, because he can go on TV and say as many times as he wants that he's sorry about something, but until he's living the right way, it doesn't matter to his family. And he can ask himself, how did this happen? How could I have done that? Well, I've got an answer for you. It's ego. It's being self-centered. It's thinking that you're bigger than you are. It's losing a sense of value. He's absolutely right about that. But his biggest problem is not looking in the mirror and saying, you're the problem. You're the problem. You were the problem with the Falcons. You were the problem with Louisville. I mean, that's what all of this is about. Of course, he wants to get back into coaching. I can feel for him. I know how difficult it must be for him to stand in front of the nation and apologize like this. But the biggest thing is about action. Now, there's that saying that people can't hear what you're saying because your actions are talking too loud. I think that's the way he's going to be living his life from now on.
Let's bring Mark May into the conversation. Mayday, Robert brought it up when it comes to image repair here. Is he hireable right now?
Absolutely not. He's more toxic than Jim Tressel as a hireable coach for college football. He can't even get to the NFL. At least Jim Tressel had a fallback where he could go to the NFL. The damage that he did with the Atlanta Falcons, he cannot go to the NFL. As a head coach in college football, you cannot hire this man. Now, that being said, as an offensive play caller and an offensive coordinator, I think the guy was magnificent. He was lights out. I think he may get a job as a coordinator possibly next year. He can reinvent himself in the next few years, possibly get a job as a head coach maybe 3 or 4 years down the line, maybe in the Mountain West, Western Athletic Conference, the MAC Conference, and then if he does well there, he may come back into the SEC or maybe a major conference. But right now, to hire Bobby Petrino as your head coach ain't going to happen.
The fifth SEC team in the coaches poll top 10 is Arkansas. The Razorbacks get star running back Niall Davis back from a broken ankle. This should make Tyler Wilson, who threw for 24 touchdowns and just 6 interceptions, even better. Of course, the big storyline for the Hogs is new head coach John L. Smith.
I'm looking forward to a great year. They're looking forward to a great year. We pull no punches in saying that, our goal is to win a national championship. Our goal is to win in Miami.
And I think there's 2 teams that maybe we're not giving enough credit to. Number one, Arkansas. I think Arkansas is going to be a lot better than people think. That Paul Petrino is the offensive coordinator. He was my offensive coordinator the last 2 years. He called the plays for Bobby when I hired him from Arkansas. And one team from the East, and is Georgia. I think talking to Mark Richt, he felt like they're going to have the best defense they've had since he's been there.
Last year, Tony Barnhart said, I don't think outside the box, I think outside the universe. And he's right! Notre Dame and Arkansas, baby. Notre Dame fighting Irish, wake up the echoes. You're going to be the national champion.
If they don't, you will.
I think, could we have the NCAA to come in here and drug test on our panel?
Oh, that was exactly a year ago. And BJ, you know what? The Arkansas prediction was a lot closer than everyone else's Oklahoma prediction.
So why don't you focus on that prediction?
Because we're focusing on the Notre Dame prediction that you also made for them to win the national championship.
That was a light suit like this, too.
Good football team. We have an opportunity, as I tell our football team, that we have a chance to be a great football team. I'm looking forward to a great year. They're looking forward to a great year. We pull no punches in saying that our goal is to win a national championship.
John L. Smith takes over in Fayetteville for former coach Bobby Petrino, who was involved in a motorcycle accident. Then Petrino fired following an investigation by AD Jeff Long. John L. Smith is now the head man. Bobby Petrino had an improper relationship and lied about it. Now he's out, and now they get set for Jacksonville State in the opener on September 1st. Houston, how about this Arkansas team, particularly on defense this year?
Tell you, they're going to miss Jake Beckett. This guy provided a lot of speed off the edge. Jerry Franklin, Jermaine Thomas, they've got to replace these guys. But I tell you what, they built some depth in the defensive line. D.D. Jones, Brian Jones, you see Tanarius Wright right there making a big play. If this team can cause and get some turnovers, their offense is going to be fine.
BJ, what's your take on this Arkansas team with a new head coach and a difficult offseason, yet a lot of talent?
First of all, that version of Brian Jones, you got to change that Y to an I. I mean, you got to do it correctly like I do. I think they made the best of a horrible situation, and they're lucky it happened when it did. This was during spring or prior to spring ball. You bring in John L. Smith, a guy who knows the lay of the land there in Arkansas. He was a special team coach, outside linebacker coach, prior to leaving toward his alma mater, Weber State, to be the head coach. So they bring him in for a 10-month stint, and I think this is the best they could do. But you look at Bobby Petrino, 17-15 versus the SEC, but he wasn't able to take them to an SEC championship game like this man did 3 times.
Going now to the SEC, and at Arkansas, folks are happy to see Niall Davis back this year. He's going to get tackled today for the first time since last August. That's when he broke his left ankle during a preseason scrimmage. Number 10 Arkansas holding a mock game Friday evening. Davis told Coach John L. Smith he wanted to face contact before the Hogs' season opener against Jacksonville State.
So I want to tell you, with Bobby Petrino as the coach at Arkansas, I had him picked to win the SEC West.
Wow.
I had him picked to win. But now with the late, not so
he's
fast.
He's coaching for his life. He's trying to coach for his life. He's trying to coach beyond this year.
Yeah, but he's a lame duck. He's a lame duck. To the players.
Right.
Because they don't know if he's going to be around or not. With Bobby Petrino, I'd like that Arkansas to win it, but not now.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you, Coach. I think that we all respect Bobby Petrino and the way he was able to call plays. Yeah. That's what his strength was. Now, he's not in Arkansas. You have Paul Petrino calling the plays. You still have the talent there, but we don't know if the offense is going to run as smooth or as well as it did under Bobby Petrino. So I think that's the big question mark. And John L. Smith, he's going to have to manage the team, but he's not calling the offensive plays. How is Paul Petrino going to use Tyler Wilson? We're going to find that out real soon.
Best thing for Arkansas is they're going to get a chance to get LSU and Alabama at home. They always seem to compete with LSU, whether it's on the road or at home. This time they get Les Miles and the Tigers at home. They haven't been able to beat Nick Saban since he's been the head coach, but it's week 3. We just talked about some of the concerns on that Bama defense. Tyler Wilson, I think, is the best thing that happened to Paul Petrino and John L. Smith, a veteran guy who's been through the SEC, understands this offense. I think the bigger concern is who's going to catch the football. Kobe Hamilton comes back. Chris Gregg, the tight end, is good, but they need some other receivers to step up, and I'm sure that's something they focused on in camp.
You got Niall Davis. I think the defense is going to be better with Haynes. It has got to be a lot better. Do the Hogs beat LSU or Alabama or both or neither? Because they could really complicate the race if they can win one of those.
I think best case for me is a split decision. I don't think they can beat both of them.
So they win one, and then it could be a 3-way tie, perhaps, in the West.
Could be in the mix.
Oh, it's going to be interesting.
By the way, don't forget, there's other teams. You guys, none of them? No. Don't forget, by the way, we're focused on those 2.
Yeah.
But Auburn's not going to take Auburn's going to compete. Mississippi State's going to compete. The SEC West is the nastiest division in football.